Hi guys. Tonight we wander together into a world of biting winds, ice-crusted skies, and the desperate ingenuity of people who refuse to vanish in the snow. You can almost hear it, the shriek of a storm that seems determined to scour every living thing from the land. The flakes sting your cheeks, piling fast against your fur hood, and you probably won't survive this if you don't think fast. Before you imagine yourself trudging deeper into that prehistoric whiteout, let me say this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And, if you feel like sharing, drop your location and local time down below. I always find it strangely soothing to see where and when you're listening. Now, dim the lights, because the storm is rolling in, and we step right into the story. The wind cuts sideways, a blade sharpened by endless miles of tundra. You pull your fur tighter, though the pelts are stiff with ice. Somewhere in the back of your mind, a strange, calm voice reminds you that humans have always been prey in conditions like this, prey not to lions or bears, but to the relentless cold itself. Your boots crunch through layers of frozen crust, and you pause to listen. Silence. Then, suddenly, the low moan of a blizzard beginning to swell. Snow picks up in sudden swirls, filling the air until even your own hand is hard to see. You blink against it, lashes crusted with frost, and think, I need shelter, or I become another bone under ice. A mainstream historical fact slips in here. Early Paleolithic groups in Ice Age Europe faced sudden whiteouts that could last not hours but days, with temperatures dropping so sharply that exposed flesh would freeze in minutes. Archaeologists have found evidence of mass animal die-offs during these storms, suggesting that even herds of mammoth could not outrun the wind. If such giants could perish, what hope does one fragile human have? And yet you keep walking, guided by memory, by instinct, by some fragment of inherited knowledge. Snow muffles the world. There's no bird call, no rustle, not even the familiar creak of ice on trees, just the storm growing louder. And here's a quirky tidbit. In some cultures far later, travelers swore they heard voices inside the storm, whispering instructions or temptations. Was it the brain misfiring under cold stress? Or the eerie chorus of wind slipping between rocks and snowdrifts? Either way, tonight the howls sound uncomfortably human. You stumble across a shallow dip in the ground, half shielded by rocks. The instinct to crawl inside, curl up, and hope for mercy almost overtakes you. But you remember historians still argue whether our Ice Age ancestors trusted instinct alone, or whether they passed down deliberate storm knowledge through oral teaching. Did the elders warn, never rest in the open drift? Or did each person learn by watching others vanish into white nothingness? The debate lingers in textbooks, but for you in this moment, there's no time for academic musings. You shake your head, snow falling from your hood, and keep searching. Every breath burns, your lungs ache, seared by freezing air. The snow, unbelievably, has a scent clean, metallic, like cold iron. You lick cracked lips and taste salt from your own skin. The storm presses on you with weight, not just sound, as though the very air thickens. You feel smaller, vulnerable, a flicker against an endless force. And yet, within that flicker, you sense the determination that kept your kind alive through ages when survival was an art form. Your eyes catch movement, snow swirling differently near a ridge. The air eddies there, maybe blocked by stone. You drag your body forward, half crawling, half stumbling. Hands sink into powder, fingertips numb. You press on anyway. You find a shallow overhang, rock jutting like a crude awning. It isn't much, but you lean into it, shielded a little from the cutting wind. Relief pulses briefly, but you know the truth. This is not a home, not yet. It's the barest outline of possibility. The blizzard's breath deepens, like a living creature settling into its rage. Snow clots around your boots, piling higher each moment. You draw your fur tighter, shaking violently, not sure if it's determination or the early tremors of hypothermia. Still, you whisper into the white, I will not die here. And with that vow, you begin to imagine the structures you must build, the tricks learned from generations who refuse to be erased. The story moves forward now, step by slow step. You stand in the storm's teeth, realizing that this is only the beginning, the first test in a chain of decisions that will either craft shelter or lead to silence under snow. And so, with breath ragged and vision blurred, you take the first step toward building something that can outlast the blizzard. The wind claws harder at your hood now, dragging snowflakes like icy needles across your cheeks. You stand near that shallow overhang of rock, still breathing too quickly, the bitter air scraping your throat raw. This sliver of stone feels like an anchor in the chaos, yet you know better than to settle. If you stay pressed against it without thought, the storm will bury you alive. You need to climb higher, to think in terms of terrain and safety. And so the question comes to you, should you risk the high ground? Snow gusts whip upward in swirls, the ridge above glistening faintly even through the whiteout. You push forward, your legs aching as you begin to ascend. The slope is slick, every step an effort. You know why you climb because at the top you can see, even if only for brief moments when the wind eases. In blizzards, vision is not a luxury, it is survival. If you cannot see the valley floor, if you cannot map where rivers might freeze or where predators might lurk, you are blind. A mainstream historical fact settles in. In Ice Age landscapes, high ground was a double-edged sword. Archaeological evidence shows that early groups often chose ridges for temporary camps, gaining clear sightlines over valleys to track herds of reindeer or mammoth. But the higher you went, the more exposed you became to wind. It's a gamble, and tonight, you are the one rolling those ancient dice. You pause midway up, chest heaving. Snow has a strange sound when driven hard. It's not silent at all. It hisses, it scrapes, it rattles against stone. You tighten your grip on a frozen branch, testing its firmness. It snaps with a crack that echoes down the slope, startling in the emptiness. And here's a quirky tidbit. Later peoples believed such sounds were omens. A snapping branch in the middle of a storm could be read as a spirit warning, or as nature itself scolding your trespass. Whether cavemen believed in omens or only trusted muscle and instinct is unclear, but either way, your gut tenses at the sound. You climb higher still, knees trembling. The higher ground reveals itself slowly, a crest of rock where snow eddies rather than settles. You push through it, finally reaching top. The blizzard rages, but you are no longer blind. Through swirling gaps, you catch glimpses, a valley dipping into darkness, a line of trees bent low under frost, and further off, what might be the shadow of a herd clustered together for warmth. It doesn't matter if it's mammoth or bison, what matters is that life still exists out there. You are not entirely alone. Historians still argue whether Ice Age humans chose their campsites purely by practical means, sightlines, water sources, hunting grounds, or whether ritual played a role. Did they believe certain ridges held ancestral power, guiding them through storms? Or was it always a simple matter of survival calculations? The debate continues in academic halls. But for you, with snow hammering into your fur, the reasoning is immediate. You need to see, to know where the dangers lie. You hunker low against the ridge, using the natural rock as a shield. From here, you think of avalanches. Snow on slopes. This steep can turn traitorous with the right gust. Your mind conjures the roar of ice and debris tumbling down, a wall of white crushing everything. It's not imagination. Geological surveys show ancient avalanche scars, valleys where layers of compacted snow collapsed centuries ago. Avalanches do not care whether you are a mammoth or a man. So you weigh it in your head. Safer to hide low in valleys, where wind is muted, but risk being buried in a sudden collapse? Or safer here on the ridge, battered by wind but above the worst? Survival is always a gamble. The snow bites harder, numbing your toes. You shift your weight, stamping lightly to stir circulation. Cold has its own sound. You realize a ringing silence in your ears, broken only by the thrum of blood fighting to stay liquid in your veins. You inhale deeply, and the air feels like splintered glass. Another step forward brings you to a rocky shelf with just enough space to crouch. The stone is rough, jagged, with flakes of quartz glittering faintly in the dim stormlight. You rest a moment, running gloved hands across the surface, and you wonder, did ancestors once sit here too, weighing these same choices? You picture a small band of hunters, huddled against this same ridge, skins pulled tight, arguing whether to descend or remain. Their voices rise above the howl of wind, caught in debate. One insists, "Down by the river bend, the snow is softer, we'll be safe there." Another shakes his head, warning, "Avalanche will take you." You can almost hear them, echoing through time. The snow thickens, muffling even your breath. Still, from this height you sense your bearings. The slope of the land, the bend of the valley, the faint silhouettes of trees all stitched together in your mind. You tuck this map inside your thoughts like a treasure, because when the storm grows worse, and it will, you will need memory more than sight. Here is where you stop to gather a few stones. Your hands are stiff, fingers clumsy, but you pile them into a small marker, a cairn no taller than your knee. The act feels oddly symbolic. Long before maps on paper, people used such markers to navigate. And there is comfort in it. The idea that even if you stumble back into white blindness, this pile of stone might whisper the way. The ridge shakes under the wind, a deep rumble you can feel in your bones. You crouch lower, hugging yourself, and let your eyes close briefly. Fatigue gnaws at you. The temptation to simply fold into the snow to rest is almost irresistible. But you remember what was said earlier, that snow kills not with teeth but with silence. Sleep is not safety here, it is surrender. You open your eyes, pulling yourself back to focus. You glance down the valley again, the storm dimming everything, yet there's a faint glow moonlight smeared across snow. It gives the world a silvered sheen, ghostly and otherworldly. For a fleeting moment, beauty cuts through the fear. Isn't it strange, you think, how even in danger, the world insists on showing you something exquisite? Then you shake your head. Beauty doesn't keep you alive. Strategy does. You resolve to hold the ridge for now, to use its height to plan, but not to linger longer than needed. You will need to descend again, to gather wood, stone, and hides, to carve out a proper shelter before exhaustion defeats you. Your stomach growls, low and hollow. Hunger is another predator, prowling always at the edges, but you push it aside. Shelter first, food after. That was the rule whispered down generations, though no one wrote it in stone. The snow howls like a choir of ghosts. You lean forward, whispering back as though answering, "Not tonight," you murmur, lips cracked and raw. The wind steals your words, scattering them into the endless white. Still, the vow feels strong enough to hold. You remain crouched on the ridge, stone against your back, blizzard swirling in maddening circles. Your thoughts drift between fear and determination, between ancient memory and immediate need. You know the next step. You must study the snow itself, to read its shapes like maps, to find the place where survival can be carved from death. The ridge groans again under the weight of storm. You rise, legs trembling, ready to descend once more. Higher ground gave you sight. Now it must give you purpose. You take a deep breath, tasting frost, and step forward into the white abyss. You begin your descent from the ridge, each step deliberate, boots sliding against powder and crust. The blizzard rages still, but something shifts in your mind. The panic that gripped you earlier quiets into a slower rhythm, like the beat of a drum deep in your chest. Now, instead of stumbling blindly, you start to look with intention. You realize the storm hides patterns, and those patterns might decide your fate. Snow isn't just cold, it is a language written across the earth. Tonight, you will learn to read it. Your eyes squint through the blur, noticing how snow piles differently depending on what lies beneath. Some drifts swell tall and rounded, almost soft-looking, while others ripple sharp, as if sculpted by unseen hands. The air itself seems to draw lines across the landscape, and you sense that if you can interpret them, you can find the safest hollow, the strongest bank, the best place to carve shelter. A mainstream historical fact steadies your thoughts. Archaeologists studying Ice Age survival tactics point to snow caves as one of the most effective emergency shelters. Even today, mountaineers use similar methods, digging into drifts to find insulation. Snow, though deadly when it falls, can also trap warmth when shaped carefully. Early humans must have learned this, whether through luck, observation, or repeated trial and error. As you look at the walls of drifting powder, you realize you are following in that ancient trail of thought. The wind gusts suddenly, slapping ice crystals against your face. You pull your fur tighter and lean into it. Your mind, oddly enough, drifts toward a quirky tidbit. In certain Arctic folklore, the way snow fell was believed to mirror the mood of sky spirits. When flakes swirled in circles, people whispered that the spirits were dancing. When the snow fell sharp and straight, the spirits were angry. Tonight, the blizzard dances and scolds at once, leaving you half amused, half uneasy. You stop at the base of a slope, where the snow has piled in a rounded dome. You kneel, running your glove over it. The surface feels crusty at first, but when you press harder, your hand sinks into softer layers beneath. The crust can bear weight, the interior can be hollowed. This is knowledge worth holding on to. But then you glance upward, the slope above is heavy with drift, and you imagine the nightmare of collapse. Historians still debate whether Ice Age people deliberately sought out such drifts or avoided them. Did they see a mound and think shelter, or did they fear burial? The truth may never be known, yet as you kneel in the storm, you can almost feel the calculation running through your blood. Risk and reward, survival and suffocation, always balanced on a knife's edge. You rise again, trudging further. The snow grows deeper, pulling at your boots, forcing each step into a slow battle. Yet the storm itself teaches you. You notice how wind carves hollows behind rocks, scooping the ground bare while piling banks just beyond. These sheltered pockets feel safer, protected from both wind and avalanche. You stop in one, crouching low, letting the wind howl above your head while you sit in quiet. It feels almost like being underwater, muted, cocooned. For the first time since the storm began, you can hear your own breath without strain. The air here tastes different, less metallic, softer somehow. You tilt your head back and exhale, watching the mist of your breath curl upward, only to vanish quickly in the cold. The stillness is a relief, though fragile. You know you cannot stay in silence forever. Still, the pause brings clarity. You imagine how, in centuries past, hunters must have crouched in similar hollows, listening for the faint pad of wolf paws or the crackle of fire on distant ridges. You press onward again, tracing these patterns like reading a scroll. Snow reveals the hidden shapes of land. A hollow means shelter, a ridge means exposure. A rippled drift, shaped by crosswinds, means instability, danger of collapse. You file each sign away, building a vocabulary of survival. At one point, you stumble, knee striking hard against something beneath the snow. You dig quickly, fingers clawing at the powder, until you reveal the rounded edge of stone. It feels solid, unmovable. Relief fills you. Stone is anchor. Stone is certainty. You lean against it, forehead resting briefly on the cold surface. The contact is grounding. Above, the wind continues its frenzy, but here you are tethered to something eternal. You remember suddenly that snow itself has many words in old tongues, far more than just snow. In some Arctic languages, dozens of terms describe it. The powder good for sleds, the crust that breaks underfoot, the sticky flakes that cling to fur. Perhaps in Ice Age speech too there were many names, though they are lost to time. The thought makes you smile faintly. Naming is a way of taming. You follow the stone ridgeline, tracing how the snow bends around it. It leads you toward a cluster of trees bent low with frost. Their branches sag under weight, and the snow beneath them is thinner, partly shielded. You crouch again, brushing powder aside to find firmer ground. This place could be worked into shelter, you think. Not perfect, but possible. Still, you wander further, because instinct tells you that choosing too quickly might cost you dearly. You need the best chance, not just the first. Your steps drag, each one heavier than the last, but determination keeps you upright. The storm whistles strangely now, the pitch rising and falling like a flute. You pause, listening. Your tired mind wonders if the sound is warning, or perhaps guiding. And here, in your exhaustion, you think of ancestors once more. Did they too hear voices in storms, mistaking wind for instruction? Maybe. But perhaps those voices were only their own instincts made louder by fear. Either way, you take it seriously. The snowdrifts lead you at last to a depression shaped like a shallow bowl. Rocks rise on two sides, wind is funneled away, and the drift lies deep but stable. This is promising. You crouch, testing with your hands, pressing until the crust breaks and soft layers yield. Yes, this is the one. You sink to your knees, exhaustion flooding you, but relief sparking at the same time. You have read the snow, followed its lines, and found your chance. The storm rages on, but you are no longer wandering blind. You have chosen your battleground, and the next step is to carve it into something livable. The night thickens, wind screaming like a living beast, yet you sit in your chosen hollow, fur crusted with frost, heart steadying. You whisper to yourself, "Snow can kill, but snow can also save." And with that thought, you gather your last scraps of strength. Soon you will dig, shaping the drift into walls that breathe, a roof that insulates, and a chamber that might cradle your fragile warmth. For now, you sit quietly, memorizing every curve of the hollow. The storm writes its story across the land, but you are learning to read, letter by frozen letter. You crouch low inside the shallow bowl you chose, snow rising around you like pale walls waiting to be shaped. The storm above continues to shriek, but here, in this depression, you can almost imagine you are shielded by something larger than yourself. Yet imagination will not keep you alive. You know what comes next. You must dig. Carving into the drift is the only way to turn this open wound of landscape into something resembling shelter. Your hands feel clumsy, fingers numbed and swollen, but you press them into the crust, breaking through with slow insistence. Snow resists at first, frozen, compact, stubborn, but beneath the surface it grows softer, yielding. It's like peeling back a hard rind to find tender fruit beneath. Each scoop you lift out leaves a deeper hollow. Your arms burn, your breath fogs, and flakes cling to your fur until you resemble another drift yourself. Still, you keep moving. Archaeological evidence shows that groups during the Upper Paleolithic were resourceful enough to dig chambers directly into snowbanks, creating structures similar to what mountaineers call quinjees today. By carving inward and smoothing the walls, they discovered that snow deadly when it buries you can also insulate, holding a bubble of warmth within. It seems absurd at first, to trust the very substance that threatens to suffocate you. And yet, those who learned this lesson endured, while those who resisted it likely perished. As you hollow deeper, you notice something striking. The sound of the storm shifts once you enter the drift. Outside, the wind is a constant roar. Inside, the noise muffles into a low hum, almost like the distant pounding of the sea. The snow is swallowing sound. You pause, breathing slowly, savoring the quiet. It feels like entering another world, one where the storm is a rumor rather than a tyrant. There's a curious observation here. Some explorers much later described snow caves as strangely comforting, even dreamlike. One 19th century climber wrote that lying inside a hollowed drift felt like resting in the belly of the earth, womb-like and oddly secure. You feel that sensation now, a paradox of safety in the very substance that has tormented you for hours. Still, you cannot ignore the risk. Archaeologists cannot fully agree whether prehistoric people fully understood ventilation or stumbled upon it by accident. A fire inside a snow cave without airflow can turn deadly in moments, choking out life with smoke or carbon dioxide. Did the ancients carve small breathing holes intentionally, or did they learn the hard way, losing members to invisible suffocation? The question lingers unanswered, a gap in history. Tonight, you must decide for yourself. As you carve, you remember to leave a small gap near the roof, hoping instinct matches wisdom. Your arms ache with repetition. The snow, though soft, is heavy when lifted scoop by scoop. You pile it at the entrance, building a mound that will later serve as a windbreak. Your gloves are soaked, fingers stiff, but still you move with dogged rhythm. Scrape, scoop, press. Hollow grows wider, tall enough now for you to hunch inside. You brush the walls smooth, packing them to keep flakes from falling. The scent here is faint, but present cold has its own aroma, sharp and mineral, tinged faintly with musk from your damp furs. The air feels closer, less biting than outside, as if the snow is already holding a fragment of your body heat. You pull your hood back for a moment, steam lifting faintly from your hair. It feels almost miraculous. And then fatigue hits. You slump against the wall, chest heaving, heart pounding in protest. Every muscle complains. A whisper in your mind urges, just lie here, just stop, but you know better. The cold would slide in, seeping like water through cracks. Rest too long, and you'll never rise. To break the heaviness, you recall a peculiar belief from Siberian shamans, that snow shelters had spirits, and one had to speak softly inside them, lest the walls grow jealous and collapse. You almost laugh, the thought oddly comforting. You whisper into the cave, voice low and raspy, "Hold me for the night, and I'll leave you in peace." Whether the snow hears or not, you feel less alone. You resume work, widening the chamber carefully, mindful not to thin the walls too much. Instinct guides you keep them thick, let them cradle rather than betray. You dig until the space is large enough to curl inside. The ceiling arches gently, the floor flattened beneath your knees. You run your hand along the wall and marvel. Smooth, cold, solid. This, you think, could be the womb of survival. Experts have long disagreed about whether Ice Age shelters were purely functional or whether they carried ritual meaning. Some cave engravings suggest that building spaces, whether in snow, bone, or stone, was an act tied to belief as much as need. Was digging into a drift seen as re-entering the body of the earth, a sacred passage to endure storms? Or was it nothing more than desperate practicality? No one knows for certain. But crouched here, with wind muted and death pushed back a little, you feel the echo of something sacred in the act. Time stretches oddly in the cave. Minutes feel like hours, hours like fleeting moments. The storm's rhythm outside becomes background music, a lullaby of muffled roars. You close your eyes briefly, imagining what ancestors must have felt the relief of walls not built by stone or wood but conjured from the storm itself. How clever, how stubborn, how human. Yet a pulse of unease rises. You remember the risk of collapse. You picture snow shifting, crushing the fragile dome onto your body. The thought makes your chest tighten. You crawl to the entrance briefly, brushing fresh powder away, reminding yourself there is still an exit, still air, still escape. The reassurance steadies you. Your stomach growls again, louder this time, echoing strangely off the walls. Hunger gnaws like a hidden beast, but food can wait until you are truly safe. Shelter is priority, always shelter. That lesson beats through history like a drum. You settle back into the hollow, curling your knees up, wrapping your fur tight. The air is warmer already, a faint miracle. You exhale and watch the mist linger instead of vanishing instantly, a sign of hope. You think of all those nameless ones before you, who must have discovered this same trick in storms long forgotten. You are part of their lineage now, their silent fraternity of blizzard builders. The snow groans faintly overhead, a sound that freezes your breath. You stare upward, heart hammering, until you realize it is only settling, compacting under its own weight. You breathe again. Outside, the storm is furious. Inside, you sit in a bubble of defiance. And so you whisper, softly, almost to yourself, "I have hollowed death into life." The walls hold, the wind passes, and for the first time since the storm began, you feel the possibility of dawn. You lean back against the curved wall of your freshly carved snow chamber, pulse still racing, breath visible in pale plumes. The storm outside is relentless, but here, inside the hollow, you finally sense a thin thread of control. Yet snow alone cannot hold back the cold forever. You need something more solid, something that won't melt with your warmth or collapse if the wind shifts. Your eyes drift toward the rocks scattered at the edge of the hollow. Stone has always been humanity's anchor, and tonight it will serve again. You crawl out into the storm, pushing against gusts that whip your fur. The snow stings like shards, and for a moment you nearly turn back, but determination drives you forward. You crouch low, searching through the whiteness. Soon your gloved hands find rough edges jutting from the ground, chunks of stone, some small enough to lift, others heavy enough to test your strength. You begin hauling them toward your hollow. Each stone feels like it weighs twice its mass under the storm's resistance, but you drag them anyway, leaving furrows in the snow behind you. One well-documented reality of Ice Age life is that people frequently built with stone not only for tools but also for structures. Archaeological sites reveal circles of rocks that once anchored hides against the wind, primitive foundations for dwellings that had to withstand not just weather, but predators too. Tonight, you repeat the same gesture, laying stone after stone in a rough ring around your hollow's entrance. The sound of rock striking rock rings strangely clear in the muffled blizzard. You arrange them carefully, testing balance with numb fingers. Your back aches, shoulders scream, but slowly a circle forms. With every stone you add, the space feels more defined, more intentional. It's no longer just a hole in snow, it's becoming a place. Curiously, later nomadic cultures left such stone circles behind as ghostly fingerprints of vanished camps. In some tundra regions, you can still find them, silent rings marking where hides once stretched, where fires once smoked, where laughter and fear once mingled. You imagine archaeologists thousands of years from now stumbling upon your own rough circle, wondering who you were and why you fought so hard against the storm. Still, a troubling thought intrudes. Specialists remain divided on whether these stone rings were always functional or if they sometimes carried symbolic weight. Were they simply to weigh down hides? Or did the circle itself mean something, an emblem of protection, of community, of the boundary between safe inside and deadly outside? You place your next stone carefully, half believing that the shape itself might ward off the blizzard. Your breath rasps, throat raw. You pause, gloved hand resting on one heavy slab. The surface is cold, biting even through leather, but also rough, dependable. Stone does not shift like snow. It promises stability. You think of it as bone to your shelter, something that will endure longer than you. The act of stacking draws sweat despite the freezing air. You peel your hood back for a moment, steam rising faintly from your hair, only for the storm to whip it instantly cold again. The sensation is shocking, heat stolen so quickly you gasp. You pull the hood tight once more and mutter through chattering teeth, "Not tonight." By now, the circle rises waist high in some places, lower in others. You are not building a fortress, but rather a skeleton to lean hides or branches against. a ring to define space and hold snow in place. You crawl back inside the hollow to look at it from within. The entrance is now framed by stone teeth, rough and jagged but protective. For the first time, the blizzard feels like something outside rather than inside your bones. Your arms tremble with fatigue. Each breath feels like dragging cold iron into your lungs. Yet a flicker of satisfaction warms you, an ember of pride in having shaped chaos into structure. You whisper aloud, though no one hears, "This will hold." An odd note from history crosses your mind. Some early groups used mammoth bones instead of stone when rocks were scarce. Entire huts were framed with tusks and ribs, draped in hides, snow piled atop. Imagine sleeping under the skeleton of the beast you hunted, its remains transformed from predator or prey into protector. Strange poetry, isn't it? You glance at your ring of stone and think it carries the same message. Survival always means transformation. But exhaustion makes you clumsy. One rock slips as you place it, scraping across another with a screech that echoes in the storm. You wince, not just from the sound, but from the omen it suggests. For a heartbeat, you imagine predators hearing it, drawn closer. Wolves, hyenas, perhaps worse. The night is alive with more than wind. You push the stone back into place and remind yourself to keep moving, keep focused. The storm cannot be given the chance to win. You strengthen weak spots, shifting smaller stones to fill gaps. The circle becomes tighter, less haphazard. You step back, crouching to admire your crude handiwork. Primitive though it is, it feels like a fortress to you. And yet, doubt lingers. Archaeologists studying such circles sometimes argue over their purpose. Were they permanent camps, left for seasons, or temporary stopgaps for blizzards like this? Some believe they marked sacred spaces. Others insist they were nothing more than practical engineering. The academic community continues to question, leaving the answer buried in snow and time. You smile faintly at the thought that you are, in this moment, living the very puzzle they study. Back inside the hollow, you lean against the wall, shoulders slumped. The blizzard still shrieks beyond your stone ring, but the sound feels muted, less threatening. You exhale slowly, eyes half closing. But before you drift, you force yourself to crawl forward, brushing snow from the ring's edges, reinforcing it one last time. You cannot afford laziness now. When you return to the hollow, something in you eases. The stone circle feels like a ritual completed, an invisible line drawn between chaos and survival. You curl tighter into your furs, whispering softly, "Let this hold." The words echo faintly against snow and stone, a prayer disguised as pragmatism. The storm shows no mercy. But here, with walls of snow behind you and teeth of stone before you, you begin to believe in the possibility of morning. The circle of stones stands half buried in snow now, a jagged crown above your hollow. You huddle within, listening to the storm throb outside, but the work isn't finished. Stones are strong, yes, but they are heavy, unyielding. They cannot close the roof or bend into an arch. For that, you need something more flexible, something that can span gaps, something you can bend and lash into place. You need branches. The thought makes you groan softly. It means leaving your snow cave again, forcing your body back into the storm's teeth. Your legs tremble as you push yourself upright. Cold has turned your muscles stiff, but movement is the only thing that keeps them alive. You crawl to the entrance, duck beneath the low arch, and once more step into the storm's fury. The wind smashes at you, hard enough to stagger. Snowflakes whip like razors across your cheeks, stinging the tender flesh. Still, you trudge toward the cluster of bent trees you glimpsed earlier. Your boots sink into drifts, dragging at your legs with every step. The branches loom like frozen arms, sagging under frost, creaking softly in protest against the weight. Researchers agree that Ice Age peoples often used wood as the framework of their shelters, bending saplings into arcs, binding them with sinew, and covering them with hides or packed snow. Even in treeless tundra, they scavenged driftwood carried by rivers or bones from massive beasts. You recall this fact as you tug at a branch, testing its strength. It bends, groans, and then snaps with a sharp crack. You stagger backward, the broken piece heavy in your hands, but relief flickers it will serve. You drag it back to your hollow, leaving a track in the snow. The branch is awkward, scraping against your shoulder, but you manage. Inside the stone ring, you jam one end into the packed snow, leaning it to form part of a crude frame. It's clumsy, but it feels like progress. You need more, always more. You stagger back into the storm, teeth clenched against the sting. An odd custom from much later times drifts into your memory. In some Arctic groups, it was said that each branch cut for shelter had to be thanked with a whisper, lest the spirits of the forest grow angry. You find yourself murmuring, "Thank you," each time a branch breaks, half mockery, half genuine gratitude. Alone in this storm, why not? It steadies you, makes the task feel less brutal. By the third trip, your arms shake from exhaustion, but your shelter begins to take shape. Branches crisscross above the hollow, lashed together with strips of frozen sinew scavenged from your pack. They groan under the weight of snow, but together they form a skeletal roof. You crouch beneath it, adjusting angles, pressing knots tight with teeth and stiff fingers. Experts have long disagreed about how much planning went into these primitive frameworks. Some argue they were carefully engineered, trial and error refined across generations. Others believe desperation dictated design. Anything that held together for a night was good enough. You sense truth in both. There is instinct here, yes, but also memory, ancestral lessons whispered through hands that knew how to tie knots in wind and dark. Your fingers throb, nails splitting against frozen bark. You pull your hands back, blow on them, and watch your breath crystallize instantly. Pain lances through each finger, sharper than the wind itself. You curse softly, words swallowed by the blizzard. Still, you lift another branch, pushing it into place, hearing the satisfying crackle as it locks against stone. The soundscape of your shelter changes with each addition. Before, the storm roared without pause. Now, branches creak, snow hisses against wood, the wind splits into whistles instead of gales. Your little chamber hums like an instrument, playing the song of survival in rough, uneven notes. You close your eyes for a moment, listening, and for once the sound does not terrify you. It comforts you, like the heartbeat of your crude creation. You pause, leaning your forehead against the cold wood. The scent rises, resin sharp, earthy, almost sweet beneath the frost. For a heartbeat, it transports you to warmer seasons you barely remember. Sunlit forests, birdsong, rivers not locked in ice. The memory hurts, but it also heals. You smile faintly, whispering again, "Thank you." The frame is not finished, but it is enough to offer shape. You crawl inside, shoulders brushing wood, fur snagging on rough bark. The chamber feels different now, no longer just a hole. It has bones, a skeleton. Soon, you will need to clothe it hides stretched, snow-packed, gaps sealed. For now, though, you rest your head against the curved wood, breath steadying. An unusual discovery from archaeology surfaces in your mind. Some Ice Age shelters show evidence of complex layering branches, hides, snow, and then more stone. Like nesting dolls, each layer trapped warmth, each layer turned weakness into strength. You wonder how many years it took before humans understood this principle. Did someone stumble on it by chance? Or did knowledge accumulate slowly, one storm at a time? Question lingers, unanswered in the frost. You pull your furs tighter, gaze tracing the lattice of branches above. They creak in rhythm with the wind, a language of protest and endurance. You imagine your ancestors crouched under similar lattices, whispering to children, coaxing embers, sharing warmth. The thought fills you with strange companionship. You are not the first, and you will not be the last. But then the storm surges, wind howling louder, snow pressing harder against the frame. A shudder runs through the branches. Your heart leaps. You press up with both hands, reinforcing the structure, muttering desperate encouragement. The frame holds, though it groans under the strain. You sit frozen, muscles taut, until the gust passes. Then you exhale in shaky relief, forehead slick with cold sweat. You realize you cannot leave it like this. More branches, more cross-lashing, more reinforcement, only then will it endure. But your body protests, every muscle trembling, every bone aching. You wonder briefly if you can last the night as it is. Then you shake your head. No. You know the truth. Storms are merciless. Half measures invite death. So, with the stubbornness that has always defined survival, you crawl out again, seeking more wood. Each trip feels heavier, each branch harder to break. But you drag them back, one by one, weaving them into the frame, until your shelter resembles a cage of wood and stone. Crude, yes, but enough to resist collapse, enough to buy you time. The storm rages on, but your shelter breathes with you now. It is imperfect, fragile, but alive. You curl beneath its frame, whispering into the hollow air. Bones are laid. Tomorrow, flesh will cover them. The frame of branches creaks above you, a cage of wood lashed into place, bending but not breaking under the storm's steady pressure. Your body huddles low, knees pressed to chest, fur stiff with frost. For now, you are alive, but you know the frame cannot protect you on its own. Bones need skin, and in your world, that means hides stretched and lashed, a second skin over the first. Without them, the wind will snake through gaps, and the storm will steal your warmth breath by breath. So you force yourself to move again. Your muscles ache, legs stiff from crouching in cold, but you push yourself through the narrow entrance. The blizzard greets you instantly, furious as ever, stinging flakes striking your cheeks like pinpricks. You clutch your pack close, pulling free the folded hides you carry. They are stiff with frost, heavy, and the fur crackles when you shake it. Still, they are salvation. Excavations have shown that Paleolithic shelters often relied on animal skins stretched taut over wooden frames, hides scraped clean, cured by smoke or fat, and sewn together with sinew. Archaeologists found perforated bones shaped like needles, proof that stitching was part of survival long before silk or linen. You picture those hands rough, weathered threading sinew through thick hide while children watched. Tonight, you repeat their gesture. You drag the first hide into place, throwing it over the frame. The wind catches it, snapping it like a sail. You wrestle it down, pinning it beneath a stone, lashing one corner to a branch with a strip of sinew. It's clumsy, awkward work, your fingers stiff, but slowly it holds. The hide flaps less, hugging the frame instead of fighting it. Relief swells, but you know there are more to go. Curiously, in later nomadic traditions, hides weren't only practical, they carried meaning. Some groups believed certain animals offered stronger protection in death than in life. A bison's skin might guard a shelter from wind, while a reindeer's fur was thought to confuse predators' scent. You don't know if such beliefs existed in the Ice Age, but the thought makes you smile faintly. You glance at the patchwork of hides and whisper, half playful, "Protect me, old friends." Yet questions remain. Archaeologists cannot fully agree whether the hides were always sewn or sometimes just layered and weighted with stones. Did Ice Age people have the luxury of time to stitch carefully, or did they simply drape and adjust in desperate storms? The evidence suggests both. Tonight, in your storm-lashed hollow, you do the latter. You have no time for neatness, only urgency. You stretch another hide across, pulling it tight, pressing stones along the bottom edge to seal gaps. The furs overlap, patchwork layers that block the wind and mute the storm's howl. Slowly, the space beneath grows darker, enclosed. You crawl inside and sit for a moment, listening. The difference is instant. The wind is muffled now, reduced to a distant roar. Snowflakes no longer sting your face. For the first time, you are inside a space that feels like a dwelling rather than a hole. The smell hits next. Damp fur, musk from old animals, faintly sour leather. It fills your nose, clings to your tongue. It is not pleasant, but it is strangely reassuring. It reminds you that you carry the memory of the hunt, that the lives taken to feed you still shelter you now. You breathe it in, grateful despite the stench. You crawl around the chamber, checking edges, pressing stones tighter against the hides. Your hands sting, but you do not stop. You feel the draft vanish with each adjustment. The chamber warms slowly, the air no longer rushing through gaps. You exhale, and your breath hangs longer in the air, proof of insulation working. A small triumph, but vital. An odd tale comes to mind from ethnographic accounts much later. Some groups sang to their shelters as they built them, rhythmic chants meant to bind the structure together. The voice was seen as a tool, as important as stone or wood. You murmur softly now, not quite song, not quite prayer, words without meaning yet carrying rhythm. Perhaps it is only to keep yourself steady, but the sound fills the chamber with something human. You lean back, shoulders against the hide wall. It shivers slightly in the wind but holds. Your eyelids sag with exhaustion, but you force them open, too soon to rest. The storm may test you still. You crawl to the entrance, peeking out. Snow piles against the stones, but your circle holds. The hides draped tight. You smile faintly, a sliver of pride glowing in your chest. Still, doubt lingers. Experts remain divided on how long such shelters could last. Days, weeks, perhaps whole seasons. Were they temporary blizzard defenses or semi-permanent campsites? No consensus exists, but as you crouch in your patchwork hut, you realize it doesn't matter. For you, survival isn't measured in weeks. It's measured in hours, in breaths. If the hides hold until morning, they are enough. The frame above groans again, snow pressing heavier. You brace instinctively, but the hides shift smoothly, shedding weight, sliding drifts off their surface. The design works. You exhale slowly, head resting on your knees. At last, the fury outside feels distant. You are cocooned in a bubble of warmth, crude but effective. You stretch your arms, wincing at stiff muscles. Then, almost instinctively, you run your hand along the hide beside you, feeling the fur's rough texture. It is coarse, stiff with frost, but beneath your palm you imagine the animal it once was charging across tundra, breath steaming, eyes wild. Now, in death, it guards you. There is poetry in that transformation, harsh but true. Your thoughts drift toward community. You picture others, men, women, children working together to stretch hides across frames, laughter and shouting mixing with wind. Many hands would make it faster, easier. Alone, it is almost unbearable. You feel the loneliness keenly, a hollow ache deeper than hunger. But then you remind yourself, by imagining them, you keep them with you. You are part of that lineage, even if no one sits beside you tonight. The storm howls, but softer now. The hides rustle, branches creak, snow presses, yet your little chamber endures. You close your eyes briefly, listening to the sounds. They are no longer terrifying. They are music, the rhythm of shelter doing its work. And so, with a faint smile, you whisper into the dim air, "Bones are covered. Skin is in place. I live another night." The hides cling to the frame like the flesh of some great beast, trembling when the wind claws at them, then settling back into silence. You huddle beneath them, grateful for their stubborn resistance, but you know one more element is needed. Snow and stone, wood and hide, they shield you from the storm. Yet they cannot give you the warmth that keeps your blood from thickening into ice. You need fire. The thought itself feels dangerous. Fire inside a shelter like this? The image of flames licking up, hides smoldering, the chamber filling with choking smoke, it's enough to make you hesitate. But then your body shudders violently, teeth rattling, muscles stiffening. Without heat, you will not last the night. You must risk it. Excavated hearths from Ice Age sites reveal blackened stones clustered inside shelters, rings where flames once burned. Archaeologists even found ash layers buried deep in caves, proof that fire was the heartbeat of survival. It roasted meat, hardened spears, frightened predators, and lit shadows. Tonight, it is your only salvation. You fumble through your pack, fingers numb, until they close around flint and a shard of steel. These tools feel like treasures beyond gold, the thin line between life and a frozen corpse. Your hands shake as you crouch over a small pile of tinder, dry moss and scrapings saved for such a moment. You strike. Sparks leap, vanish. Strike again. A hiss of light. Still nothing. Your heart pounds harder with every failure. You mutter under your breath, words blurring into the storm's rhythm. You strike once more, and at last a spark bites the tinder. A curl of smoke. You bend low, breath soft and coaxing, as though speaking to a child. The ember glows, spreads, and then, with a sigh, a flame licks upward. Relief floods you, sharp and sweet. You nearly weep. Curiously, later groups sometimes believed fire was a living creature, one that could be angered or soothed. It demanded respect. Some whispered to flames, fed them scraps of food, as if keeping them content would keep them alive. You find yourself doing the same now, murmuring, "Stay with me, burn gently." The fire crackles, as though answering. Still, a serious question nags. How did early humans manage smoke inside fragile shelters? Some experts suggest they carved vents into the roof. Others think the hides themselves leaked enough for gases to escape. No consensus exists. As you watch the first faint tendrils of smoke curl upward, your chest tightens. You fan the flame carefully, keeping it small, praying it doesn't betray you. The chamber warms slowly, the bitter edge of air softening. Your breath fogs less, and for the first time, your fingers begin to tingle painfully as blood returns. The sensation is almost worse than numbness, but you welcome it. Pain means life. You hold your hands close, palms glowing orange, shadows dancing on the curved hide walls. The smell shifts. Damp fur and musk mix now with wood smoke, a sharp tang that stings your nose but fills you with hope. Fire changes everything. It pushes back the dark, lets you see beyond arm's reach. The chamber flickers, orange and gold, a fragile sun beneath snow. You add small twigs, careful not to smother the flame. Each catch sends sparks upward, tiny stars vanishing into shadow. The crackle is soothing, like a voice. You lean closer, eyelids heavy, the warmth pulling you towards sleep. But you force yourself upright. Too soon. Fires demand tending. Neglect it, and you'll wake in cold silence or not at all. An odd fragment of lore surfaces. Some hunters claimed that if you fell asleep too close to a fire, wandering spirits would slip into your dreams and steal your breath. You chuckle weakly, though your breath trembles. Spirits or no, you know sleep too close could mean waking to flames licking your fur. You pull back a little. Still basking in warmth but wary of danger. The hides rustle as wind pushes against them, but the fire's glow makes the storm seem less fearsome. The sound shifts from predator's roar to background noise. You stare into the flames, hypnotized by their dance, and for a moment you feel almost safe. Yet your thoughts wander. How many before you must have sat like this, watching sparks leap, hearing wind howl, feeling the thin line between life and death? Fire has always been the great divider, the tool that turned night from terror into endurance. Without it, humanity would have remained another beast shivering in dark. With it, you carved out a kingdom, even if that kingdom tonight is no larger than a snow hut. You feed the flames another twig. The glow deepens, shadows lengthening, dancing across the curved walls like strange spirits. For a moment, you could swear they move with purpose, figures flickering, vanishing. Fatigue and fear twist your vision, but you do not look away. Perhaps these are the ancestors, watching, nodding approval that you too have coaxed fire from stone. You murmur thanks, not to gods, not to beasts, but to the flame itself. Gratitude is a strange companion, but it fills you with strength. Fire is fragile, like you. It must be guarded, like you. Together, perhaps, you will see dawn. Still, unease gnaws at you. The smoke gathers thicker than expected, making your eyes sting. You crawl toward the entrance, pulling aside a flap of hide to let air slip through. A bitter gust claws inside, but the smoke thins. A compromise. Some warmth lost, but breath regained. You tie the flap partly open, heart calming. This, you think, is how survival works. Constant negotiation, never perfect, always just enough. Your stomach growls, sharp and loud, breaking the trance. Fire makes hunger worse, for it reminds you of roasting meat, of stews long gone. The scent of smoke awakens cravings you cannot yet satisfy. You swallow hard, ignoring it. Shelter first, fire second, food later. That rule endures. The flames sputter for a moment, nearly dying. Panic surges, but you grab a twig, then another, fanning with your breath until it steadies. The fear that gripped you proves the lesson again. Fire is not a given, it is a relationship. Fail to tend it, and it abandons you. You sit back, hugging your knees, warmth soaking slowly into bones. Outside, the storm rages. Inside, your small flame flickers defiantly. For the first time since the blizzard began, you believe morning might come. And so you whisper softly, voice blending with crackle and wind, "I am not alone, I have fire." The fire hums gently, glowing in its circle of stone, but warmth always fades, even when flames dance bright. You know this. Fire is fickle, demanding constant feeding, and when the storm outside grows too fierce to gather wood, you must find other ways to keep your body alive. You glance at the stones you carried earlier, piled unevenly around your shelter, and an old memory rises, a trick passed down through generations. Heat the stones, and let them hold the fire's warmth long after flames go dim. You shift closer, choosing one of the smoother rocks, and push it carefully into the fire's edge. It hisses, snow and frost sizzling off. You place another, and another, until a small cluster sits where flames lick them steadily. Hours from now, when fuel runs low, those stones will radiate enough heat to guard your body from freezing. The method is simple, but ingenious. Excavated hearths often show cracked stones, reddened and split from repeated heating, proof that Ice Age groups used this exact method. Stones absorbed warmth, then were tucked into bedding or placed at the feet of sleepers, extending fire's gift. It is a quiet detail from archaeology, but one that reveals how much thought went into every breath of survival. Tonight, you repeat that act, humbled by its cleverness. You pull the first heated stone carefully from the flame, fingers wrapped in hide to keep from burning. The rock glows faintly, warmth seeping through your palms. You place it near your bedding spot, wrapping it in fur before pressing it close. Heat seeps slowly outward, gentle as a heartbeat. Relief floods you. This is more than warmth. This is continuity. A peculiar discovery from later nomads springs to mind. Some believed heated stones carried spirits of the earth within them, guardians summoned by fire. Sleeping with such stones was said to invite dreams of safety, visions of ancestors keeping watch. You chuckle under your breath, though you are not sure if the sound is humor or hope. Tonight, the stone feels alive in your arms, and you are willing to treat it as guardian. Still, uncertainty remains. Specialists debate whether Paleolithic people heated stones for practical warmth alone, or whether ritual bound the act. Some hearths are too large, too deliberately shaped, leading archaeologists to wonder, were they altars or merely clever design? The line between survival and spirituality blurs easily in the frost. As you cradle the warm stone, you wonder if perhaps it was always both. The chamber glows faintly, flickers dancing over hide walls, fire hissing softly as stones crackle. Your eyelids grow heavy, lulled by warmth. But you force them open, for you know danger hides even in comfort. If you drift too soon, the fire may falter, the stones may cool, and frost will reclaim your body. You remind yourself that survival is never passive. It is a constant partnership with everything around you. You lay another stone in the fire, watching sparks leap upward. The glow reflects in your eyes, a mirror of survival's stubborn light. Slowly, the chamber fills with a rhythm, fire breathing, stones hissing, your own lungs echoing the same beat. The hides rustle softly as wind claws outside, but the sound no longer terrifies. Instead, it feels distant, like waves crashing far away. Inside, you are cocooned in heat. You nestle deeper, fur pulled close, warm stone pressed against your chest. The sensation is strange. Your skin almost believes you are lying beside another body, heat radiating into you. Your thoughts drift toward community again. You imagine others sharing stones, passing them from hand to hand, laying them near children, placing them at elders' feet. The image warms you further, even though it is only in your mind. You feel part of something larger, an unbroken chain of survivors who discovered these same tricks. The fire crackles suddenly, louder as one branch splits. Sparks scatter, kissing the hide wall before dying harmlessly. Your breath catches, heart leaping. A reminder. Fire can save but also betray. You adjust the stones, lowering flames slightly, keeping them steady but not wild. Balance is everything. The smell thickens smoke, charred wood, wet fur. It clings to your throat, heavy but reassuring. It is the scent of endurance, the perfume of life refusing to vanish. You breathe it deeply, coughing once, but smiling. This is what survival smells like. You glance at the stones again, their surfaces cracked now, tiny fractures from the heat. They look fragile, as though they might shatter. Yet even broken, they hold warmth, glowing faintly in the fire's heart. You think of yourself fragile, cracked, yet still holding heat. The parallel is comforting. You curl tighter, stone clutched to your chest, fire low but steady. Outside, the storm bellows, snow piling against your shelter. But within, you are wrapped in warmth, not just from flame, but from stone. It feels almost like cheating death, borrowing heat from the earth itself. You whisper softly, half to the rock, half to yourself. Hold me through the night. The words echo faintly in the chamber, blending with crackle and hiss. For the first time since the blizzard began, you close your eyes without fear. And as you drift toward uneasy rest, you realize that survival is never about single victories. It is about layering stone and hide, snow and wood, fire and flesh. Each alone is weak. Together, they form the fragile miracle of endurance. The fire burns low, stones glowing with their stored warmth. But you know even that will not be enough for the long night. Heat bleeds away slowly, slipping into the snow-packed walls, drifting into the storm beyond. Your body shivers again, instinct reminding you of the most ancient truth. When fire fails and stones cool, survival comes from the closeness of others. Breath mingling with breath, warmth shared between bodies that, more than anything, is what has carried humans through countless winters. But tonight, you are alone. The silence of that truth is heavier than the storm's roar. You curl tighter, pressing the heated stone against your chest. pretending for a moment it is another person's warmth. Yet your mind drifts to the memory of huddled groups, of shoulders pressed together, of children tucked between adults, of the communal survival that once defined humanity. Archaeological evidence points clearly to this practice. In sites across Ice Age Europe, the positioning of bones and bedding layers shows that people slept close, packed in small groups. The sharing of warmth wasn't optional, it was strategy. Body heat can raise the temperature of a confined shelter enough to keep everyone alive. Even reindeer herders centuries later knew the value of clustering in tight groups. The wisdom is timeless. You close your eyes, imagining it. The sound of breathing in unison, the faint rhythm of heartbeats near your ear, the comfort of not being the only one awake, not being the only one afraid. The vision steadies you, a phantom community conjured from memory. Strangely, some ethnographers record that in later Arctic cultures, people believed breath itself carried power. To huddle close was not just about warmth, but about sharing spirit. A person's life force, exhaled as mist, mingled with others, weaving a net of protection. You breathe slowly now, watching the fog of your exhalation drift in the firelight, pretending it mingles with more than emptiness. Still, questions persist. Archaeologists cannot fully agree on how deliberate such arrangements were. Did people understand the science of shared body heat? Or did they simply follow instinct? Did elders teach it as law? Or was it just common sense born of desperation? The debate continues, though for you tonight the answer is irrelevant. You would give anything for another body pressed against yours. The fire sputters, throwing sparks. You feed it one last piece of wood, the pile dwindling to almost nothing. Your hands are stiff, clumsy, but you manage. Then you crawl back into your furs, pressing the stone tighter, curling small. The shelter holds, but your loneliness echoes louder than the storm. To distract yourself, you imagine the mechanics of a crowded shelter. Children squirming, adults shifting, whispers and grumbles filling the night. Perhaps someone tells a story, voice weaving calm through fear. Perhaps someone sings softly, a lullaby that masks the storm's howl. You let the fantasy play in your mind, each imagined voice another layer of insulation. The hides rustle above, wind clawing, but you feel less alone. You whisper softly, "I hear you," as if answering those phantom companions. For a moment, the words ease the hollow ache inside your chest. Your body trembles again, and you know it is not just cold, it is fatigue, the weight of hours spent battling wind and snow. You let your mind wander into speculation, wondering what it would feel like if another breath touched your cheek, if another heartbeat pressed against your ribs. The thought is both comfort and torment. Some researchers argue that this need for closeness, forged in nights like these, shaped human bonds forever. The craving for touch, the comfort of community, the pull toward family and tribe, it all roots back to survival strategies in storms. You feel the truth of that tonight. Loneliness is more dangerous than cold. The fire crackles softly, shrinking lower. Shadows dance across the hide walls, flickering like figures moving. You watch them, half believing they are companions. The crackle becomes their voices, the warmth their bodies. It is illusion, but you welcome it. In survival, illusion can be as powerful as fact. You murmur into the dim air, "Stay with me," just until dawn. Whether to shadows, stones, or memory, the words carry weight. You feel calmer after speaking them, as though you've woven a thread between yourself and something larger. The heated stone presses warm against your chest still, though its strength wanes. You stroke its cracked surface with your thumb, absurdly tender. The warmth feels like loyalty, like it is doing its best to keep you alive despite its fragility. You whisper thanks, voice rough. Gratitude, again, is a survival tactic. Your eyes sag with weariness. You fight the pull, afraid of drifting too deep, but your body insists. Breath slows, warmth seeps through you, and the shelter hums quietly with storm-muted rhythm. You imagine the phantom bodies again, clustered around you, sharing heat, sharing fear, sharing hope. The vision lulls you, wrapping your heart in borrowed comfort. Before sleep takes you, you think of the unbroken chain ancestors pressed close in storms just like this, each generation breathing warmth into the next. You are part of them, whether or not you huddle with anyone tonight. Their survival made yours possible. Your survival, fragile though it feels, honors theirs. And with that thought, you let your body rest, the storm still howling outside, your fire whispering low, your stone glowing faint. In the end, it is not stone or flame alone that keeps you alive. It is the memory of others, the promise that humanity has always endured together, even when apart. The warmth from the fire and stones lingers faintly, but the ache in your stomach begins to gnaw deeper than the cold. Hunger is its own kind of predator, silent at first, then insistent, sharp, and impossible to ignore. You press your palm against your belly, but it does little good. Shelter is secured for now. Fire flickers, hides hold. The next battle is nourishment. Without it, your strength will ebb, and all the walls of snow and stone in the world will not keep you from collapsing. You glance at your pack. Inside are scraps from past hunts, bits of sinew, dried roots brittle as old parchment, marrow bones that once seemed useless but now gleam with promise. Your hands tremble as you sort them, setting aside the largest bone, hollow and heavy. A memory stirs. You can split it, boil it, and coax out the last traces of fat. Even marrow is a feast when the storm starves you. Excavations of Ice Age hearths reveal scorched bones, their interiors scraped clean, proof that marrow was treasured as one of the richest food sources available. It offered fat, energy, the fuel that muscles demanded in endless cold. Some campsites even show piles of cracked fragments, evidence of long nights spent breaking, boiling, and sucking every ounce of sustenance. Tonight, you will join their lineage, a marrow eater in the snow. You lay the bone near the fire, heating it slightly before striking it with a stone. The crack echoes inside the shelter, startlingly loud. You strike again, and the brittle shell gives way, fragments scattering. The smell rises once, faint but unmistakable, earthy and fatty. You scrape the marrow into a small container, mixing it with what roots you still have. It is a thin stew at best. You pour snow into your vessel, setting it near the fire until it melts into cloudy water. You stir the mixture, the marrow melting, the roots softening. The scent curls upward, smoky and rich. Your stomach growls louder, almost painful in its desperation. You crouch close, eyes fixed on the bubbling liquid, guarding it like treasure. Oddly, some later folklore claimed that marrow soup could carry memory. Drink it, and you might dream the hunt of the animal whose bones you boiled. Perhaps that was only a story to make hunger bearable. Still, you smile faintly. If tonight you dream of mammoths roaming endless plains, let it be so. Better dreams than despair. Yet scholars still debate whether early humans cooked for flavor or for pure necessity. Did they season with herbs, seek variety, savor taste? Or was food only fuel, swallowed without thought in the battle against starvation? Evidence suggests both possibilities. Tonight, as you stir your crude stew, you realize taste barely matters. Warmth and fullness that is the only flavor you crave. The liquid thickens slowly, roots softening into mush. You lift the vessel carefully, blowing across the surface, and sip. Heat floods your mouth, scalding but glorious. The marrow coats your tongue, rich and oily, while the roots offer bitter grit. It is not pleasant by any measure, but it is life. You swallow greedily, another sip, another. The warmth spreads into your chest, a fragile fire of its own. For a moment, the storm outside seems less ferocious. The act of eating changes everything. You are no longer only resisting death, you are replenishing, reclaiming strength. You sip again, slower now, savoring each mouthful despite the bitterness. Hunger eases its grip, though not entirely. It never truly does in such winters, but it softens, becomes tolerable. The chamber fills with scent smoke, damp fur, and now the faint aroma of stew. It reminds you of gatherings you've never seen but can imagine. Groups hunched around fires, bowls passing hand to hand, children smacking lips, elders sighing in relief. Eating is not only survival, it is ritual, the binding of community. Alone, you feel the hollowness of that absence, yet the act itself carries the echo of many voices. You set the vessel down, licking the last traces from your fingers. Grease clings to your lips, and you wipe it with the back of your sleeve. The meal was meager, yet you feel stronger, more present. Your limbs ache less, your thoughts grow sharper. Hunger no longer clouds your mind as much. You exhale slowly, gratitude softening your chest. Archaeological sites sometimes reveal bones that were not only cracked but carefully arranged near hearths. Some argue these were ritual offerings, others insist they were simply discarded. The truth may be both. Tonight, you arrange the empty bone fragments in a small pile beside the fire, as though honoring the animal's gift. You whisper softly, "Thank you. It feels necessary." The wind outside claws harder, shaking the hides, but the food anchors you. The fire glows brighter in your vision now, less fragile, more companion. You sit taller, straighter, energy pulsing faintly in your veins. The marrow was not much, but it is enough to remind you of possibility. You remember a strange belief recorded centuries later. Some said eating during storms offended the spirits of wind, who demanded sacrifice instead. Others believed the opposite, that food was an offering, a way to appease the storm's fury. You wonder idly which would apply tonight. Either way, you are glad for the meal. Spirits can be offended later. For now, your body needed fuel. The shelter hums with small sounds, the crackle of fire, the soft hiss of boiling snow, the groan of branches overhead. Each noise feels less threatening now, softened by the fullness in your belly. You close your eyes, hand resting over your stomach, and for the first time since the blizzard began, you feel a quiet contentment. Hunger will return tomorrow. It always does. But tonight, you have bought yourself time. In storms like these, time is everything. You lean back against the wall, fur warm against your skin, stomach soothed, fire glowing. You whisper into the dim chamber, "I will see another dawn." Your belly is less hollow now, soothed by the faint richness of marrow and the bitterness of roots. The storm still rattles the hides, claws at the frame, moans against the stone ring, but with food inside you and fire flickering steady, your thoughts sharpen. You notice details you missed before. The way smoke curls into corners, how snow hisses faintly as warmth seeps through, how shadows dance like restless spirits across the walls. And your mind turns to the tools you've carried, the ones you still clutch like talismans of survival. You draw the flint from your pouch, running your thumb across its sharp edge. Even dulled by use, it glints faintly in the firelight. In your other hand, you heft a shard of bone, worn smooth from scraping hides, yet still capable of biting into ice. These are not luxuries, they are extensions of your body, teeth in your hands. Without them, you would be clawing blindly at snow with frozen fingers, your flesh no match for the blizzard. Excavated sites from the Paleolithic show an astonishing variety of tools. Flint blades flaked into sharp crescents, bone awls used to pierce hides, antler chisels designed to pry ice. These artifacts tell the same story you live now. Survival demanded not only strength, but skillful hands and clever design. Stone alone was not enough. Bone, wood, sinew all combined into a toolkit as vital as fire itself. You set the flint against a branch, striking carefully, carving splinters to use as kindling. Sparks leap, hissing as they kiss damp wood. You work patiently, carving more, stockpiling small curls of tinder. Preparation is everything. You know the storm will not relent quickly. And yet there is a strange poetry in tools. Some early groups decorated their implements, carved small notches or etched lines onto bone handles. Were these marks ownership, artistry, or ritual? Specialists still cannot agree. Tonight, you trace the faint grooves on your bone scraper, wondering if someone once carved them for luck. You decide to believe they did. It feels better that way. Curiously, later myths claimed that certain stones carried spirits, that flint, for instance, was lightning captured in rock. Each strike of spark was said to be a memory of storms imprisoned. You smile faintly at the thought. If that's true, then each fire you light is stolen thunder. And tonight, stolen thunder is the only reason you breathe. You set the bone scraper aside and turn to the hide wall. Frost has begun to creep along its seams, thin lace patterns of ice spreading. You use the tool to scrape them off, clearing gaps before they grow too heavy. The bone rasps against frozen fur, the sound oddly satisfying. Small acts like this feel mundane, yet they are life-preserved. Your thoughts wander again to the people who once relied on such tools. Were they treated as possessions or as sacred objects? Archaeologists have found caches of blades buried carefully, as though stored for later or offered as tribute. Were they simply supplies, or did each blade carry identity? The academic community continues to debate, but crouched here with your flint, you know the truth in your bones. This edge is you. Without it, you are helpless. With it, you can cut, carve, create. You test the edge on a strip of sinew, slicing it into thin strands to reinforce your lashings. The flint bites cleanly, though it dulls slightly with each pass. You rotate it, finding a sharper angle, thankful for its precision. The hiss of cutting is small, but it thrills you, proof that even in a storm that wants to erase you, you still shape the world. The fire pops suddenly, a spark landing on your fur. You slap it quickly, heart leaping. Tools remind you, survival is not just invention but vigilance. You glance at the flint again, thinking of its double edge. It can save you, or wound you. The line between helper and danger is always thin. An unusual tidbit from history flickers to mind. Some Ice Age burials show bodies buried with their tools, flint blades laid beside skulls, scrapers tucked into hands. Death and survival were tied together. Tools meant to carry into whatever came after. You wonder briefly if one day you too will be found with stone in your hand, your story told by the edge of a blade. The thought chills you more than the storm. You shake your head, forcing such images away. Focus. The storm is not done, and you cannot drift into daydreams. You grip the flint harder, running your thumb along its chipped ridges, grounding yourself. Then you set it down carefully, as though placing a child to rest. Respect matters, even for stone. The chamber hums with quiet again. You hear the groan of branches above, the rustle of hides, the hiss of wind filtered through snow. You pick up the bone chisel, running its tip against the floor, carving a shallow groove to channel melted snow away from your bedding. Water seeps quickly in such shelters, and dampness kills as surely as cold. The groove guides droplets outward, a simple fix but essential. Experts remain divided on whether such maintenance was routine or learned through bitter mistakes. Did people know instinctively to dig drainage, or did they lose companions to wet furs before realizing? The evidence is scattered, but the question lingers. Tonight, as you scrape the groove, you know it is not instinct but memory knowledge inherited from countless winters of trial. You are merely the next in line. The fire's glow softens, painting the tools with orange light. You arrange them beside you, flint, bone, antler, a small arsenal, humble but mighty. You feel safer seeing them within reach, as though their presence alone is defense. Tools are companions too, not flesh but memory, carved and sharpened by countless hands. You lean back, pulling your fur tighter, and whisper softly, "You bite the ice so I don't have to. You cut so I live." The words feel strange, almost like prayer. But in this storm, even stone deserves gratitude. Your eyes close briefly, exhaustion tugging, but you force them open again. The storm howls still, relentless. Yet within your shelter, with fire low and tools near, you feel steadier than before. Every blade, every scraper, every shard is another layer between you and oblivion. And so you sit, tools laid in a neat row, fire flickering, storm raging. Survival is not only warmth or food, it is the clever edge of stone, the bite of bone, the artistry of hands shaping raw world into weapon and refuge. You clutch the flint once more, its sharpness glinting in firelight, and you whisper, "As long as I hold you, I endure." The tools lie beside you, edges gleaming faintly in the firelight. But survival demands more than sharp stone. The storm outside roars without pause, and the hides shudder against its claws. Though your shelter is holding, you know predators move in the same storm. Hunger drives them as it drives you. Wolves, for instance, are not afraid of blizzards, they are born from them, slipping through white silence as though the snow is their kin. Tonight, if you are careless, you may become prey. You crouch near the fire, listening. Beyond the howl of wind, faint sounds, drift scrapes maybe, or distant howls muffled by snow. Your breath catches. Perhaps it is only the storm playing tricks, but you know better. Wolves roam in packs, intelligent, tireless. To outlast them, you must learn from them. Archaeological finds suggest Ice Age shelters sometimes mimicked wolf dens. Entrances were dug low, narrow tunnels carved beneath drifts, forcing anyone or anything who entered to crawl. Such design served two purposes. It trapped heat, and it made predators hesitant to enter. You glance at your own snow cave, its entrance higher than you'd like, and resolve to change it. You take your bone scraper and begin carving at the base, widening downward, pushing snow outward. It is slow, exhausting work. The snow compacts into heavy chunks, but you drag them aside, piling them into a ridge outside. Each movement aches, but as the tunnel deepens, the air inside grows warmer. Already you notice the difference. The fire flickers steadier, no longer at the mercy of direct gusts. There's a curious record from later Arctic people. They sometimes shared dens with sled dogs, letting them curl at entrances to block wind. The dogs' bodies became living barriers, guardians as well as companions. You have no such animals tonight, but the memory makes you smile faintly. You imagine a wolf at your door, not as enemy but as ally, its breath steaming beside yours. Still, uncertainty lingers. Specialists remain divided on whether these den-like shelters were consciously modeled on animals or simply a parallel solution. Did humans watch wolves burrow and think, "We can do the same"? Or did necessity lead both species to the same conclusion? The debate endures, but as you scrape your tunnel deeper, you sense the answer doesn't matter. Imitation or invention, the den works. You crawl into the half-finished tunnel, testing it. The walls press close, snow brushing your shoulders, but warmth holds steady. The sound outside muffles more completely. You exhale, breath mist curling low. This is better, safer, more hidden. But then you hear it, a long, rising howl, so faint it could be imagined. Your body freezes. The storm swallows it quickly, but the echo lingers in your mind. Wolves. Perhaps far off, perhaps closer. Your chest tightens, but you remind yourself. They are hunters, yes, but they too seek shelter, and in their ways they are teachers. You crawl back inside, pulling snow to narrow the entrance further, blocking visibility. The den feels darker now, tighter, but safer. You crouch by the fire again, feeding it a twig, watching sparks rise. Shadows stretch long across the walls, figures flickering like wolves themselves. An odd belief flickers in memory. Some ancient peoples thought wolves were guides, messengers between living and dead. To see one in a storm was omen sometimes of death, sometimes of endurance. You shiver at the thought, unsure which omen tonight would be. You clutch your flint, heart racing, but slowly your breath steadies. If wolves circle, they will scent smoke, perhaps hear the crackle, but the low tunnel gives you an advantage. If one pushes through, it must crawl, and there you wait with sharpened stone. The thought eases your fear. You are not helpless prey. You are den builder now, just as they are. The fire glows brighter, as though encouraged by your resolve. You sit straighter, shoulders no longer hunched in fear. The storm howls outside, wolves perhaps with it, but inside you are cocooned in snow, stone, hide and fire. And in your heart you whisper, I have learned from the wolf. I will endure as they do. Your eyes close briefly, exhaustion tugging, but you snap them open again. Too soon to sleep. You listen, straining for more howls. None come, only the ceaseless rush of snow. Perhaps you imagined it, perhaps not. Either way, your den is stronger now, your shelter wiser. You whisper into the dim air, half smile on cracked lips. Teach me, wolf. Tonight, I am your kin. The new tunnel at your entrance keeps the wind at bay, but it also leaves you uneasy. In a whiteout like this, even the smallest mistake can mean death. You think of what will happen if you step outside again. The storm devours every landmark, every branch and stone swallowed in identical white. Without markers, you would vanish into the blizzard like smoke, never finding your shelter again. You need a way to remember, to leave a trail against forgetting. You rummage in your pack, pulling out a bundle of broken branches. They are not much splintered, rough, but they might be enough. You crawl through the tunnel and push into the storm's roar. The snow lashes your face, stinging your eyes, but you keep low, pressing each branch into the drift around your den, spacing them like breadcrumbs from stories yet to be told. Archaeological evidence shows that prehistoric people often used markers, stones, carved stakes, even bones stuck upright to guide their return. Some excavated camps show strange lines of rocks leading nowhere, but likely those were once paths cut through storms, trails for survival. Tonight you mimic them, pressing wood deep enough that the blizzard will not immediately swallow them. The storm hisses, covering your boots as you move. You push one branch into place, then another, circling wider. Each marker is crude, but when you glance back, you feel relief. The line of dark wood breaks the endless white. It is proof that you are not entirely at the storm's mercy. There's a curious fragment from later traditions. In parts of the Arctic, people believed such markers were not only physical but spiritual, signposts to ward off malevolent beings said to hunt in snow. To plant a branch was to say, "This way is human ground, keep away." You smile faintly at the thought. Perhaps tonight your crude markers do both. Still, scholars cannot fully agree on whether Ice Age groups marked paths systematically or only in moments of desperate need. Did they build entire networks across tundra, or was each storm a unique improvisation? The debate endures. For you, the answer is practical. You need only a handful of sticks to keep from vanishing into the white. You circle back toward your shelter, following the trail. The markers loom like dark figures through the blur of snow, eerie but comforting. When you crawl inside again, fire flickering low, you feel calmer. If hunger forces you out again, or if you must gather more wood, You can return without fear of losing yourself. The chamber smells of smoke and damp hide, heavy but grounding. You tuck the last of your branches beside the entrance, a small reserve. Then you crouch, warming your hands against the fire. Your body trembles with fatigue, but relief softens it. An odd tidbit surfaces in your mind. Centuries later, travelers in frozen lands sometimes tied ropes between huts, guiding their way in blizzards. Hands following rough fiber, step by step, never letting go. Your branches are the same principle, only older, simpler. Survival is often nothing more than clever repetition across time. You glance at the pile of cracked bones, the tools laid neatly, the stones glowing faintly with fire's warmth. Everything feels in order now, as though your shelter has grown a mind of its own. Outside, the storm shrieks, but you are not lost. You have a trail, you have walls, you have heat. Yet fatigue presses heavy. You curl tighter, eyes half closing, whispering softly, branches to guide me back, fire to keep me here. The words are half mantra, half lullaby. Shadows dance across the walls, and for a moment, you imagine they nod in agreement. The storm outside growls on, but within your snow-clad den the crackle of fire and the glow of heated stones form a fragile cocoon. You lean your head against the hide wall, eyes heavy, and realize that though your shelter holds, your mind is not safe from the blizzard. Fear, when left unspoken, becomes a storm of its own. And so you recall what ancestors must have done in nights like this. Whisper stories, share warnings, repeat the words that tether the living to the unseen. You speak softly to yourself, testing your voice in the chamber. It sounds strange, almost distant, as if the snow itself swallows syllables. Your words weave into fragments of memory warnings about spirits that wander white fields, shapes with frozen faces who lure the unwary out into the storm. The old stories say they mimic voices of loved ones, calling you by name until you stumble into the blizzard, never to return. Evidence from Ice Age cave, art hints at more than daily life. Painted figures blend human and animal, half spirit, half creature. Researchers agree these images likely had ritual meaning, reflections of belief in a world filled with unseen presences. Tonight, as you crouch by your fire, you can imagine those figures stepping down from stone walls to walk through snow, their whispers carried on the wind. You close your eyes, listening. The storm howls, and in its rhythm you almost hear words. A murmur, a beckoning. You shiver. Curiously, centuries later in northern Europe, travelers carried charms against snow demons, small carved figures or beads of bone. They believed blizzards were alive, hunting for stragglers. You clutch the warm stone to your chest and mutter, "Not me, not tonight." But how much of this is fear, and how much truth? Scholars remain divided. Were such tales purely superstition, or did they encode practical warnings? Perhaps the story of spirits calling your name was simply a way to remind children never to leave shelter during a storm. Perhaps not. The line between myth and wisdom blurs easily in the dark. Your fire flickers, shadows leaping on the hides. They look almost like figures dancing thin, tall, inhuman. You know it is only flame, but exhaustion makes imagination vivid. You whisper again, a charm against dread. Walls hold, fire lives, spirits pass by. Your voice steadies, and the fear loosens its grip. The chamber fills with smoke and warmth. You breathe slowly, the smell of charred wood mingling with musk of hides. The rhythm soothes you, as though the shelter itself breathes with you. You think of ancestors huddled together, telling such stories not just to frighten but to comfort. Fear shared aloud becomes smaller, easier to endure. You reach for a piece of bone, scratching a line into the hide wall. The mark is crude, jagged, but meaningful. Perhaps it will remind you tomorrow of the spirits you imagined tonight. proof that you survived their passing. Archaeologists sometimes find similar scratches on bone or walls marks, whose purpose is debated. Were they calendars, tallies of hunts, or simply the graffiti of fear? Tonight, yours is a ward, a small sign that you pushed back the dark. Your body trembles still, but not from cold, rather, from the weight of solitude. You speak again, quieter, to no one but yourself. I am here. I endure. The storm does not take me. The words echo softly, and you feel lighter. The fire hisses, smoke curling into the tunnel. You crawl over, pushing snow to widen the vent. A gust slips inside, biting cold, but fresh air clears the smoke. Balance again, warmth and breath, fire and frost. Always balance. The storm screams louder for a moment, as if angered by your defiance. You smile faintly at the thought. The blizzard can rage all it wants. You have fire, stone, hide, and will. You are not easily taken. And so, with heart steadier, you curl once more against the warmed stones, eyelids sagging. Spirits may whisper outside, but inside, your voice is louder. You whisper one last time before sleep. I will not answer. I remain. You wake with a start, though you cannot tell whether you had slept for minutes or hours. The storm outside still hammers the hides. A constant weight presses against your ears. The fire has dwindled to coals, faint orange veins glowing in the ash. You stretch your stiff legs, shifting to feed the embers a thin stick. The flames answer weakly, then rise, crackling again. Relief slips through you, but so does an ache deeper than hunger or cold, the awareness that you are alone. Your mind drifts to the image of children in shelters like this, their breath fogging in the dim glow, their eyes wide as they listen to parents murmur stories. In archaeological sites, excavators sometimes find small footprints pressed into ancient floors beside hearths, proof that little ones huddled close in the same flicker of light. One well-preserved settlement even revealed miniature tools carved from bone-tiny scrapers, too delicate for work, perhaps meant as toys or as training for hands that would one day need to build their own shelters. The thought softens your chest. Even in the Ice Age, children were part of survival, not apart from it. You imagine them now, bundled under hides, tucked safely in fur. Their whimpers would be soothed by warmth pressed against their parents' bodies, by hands patting them gently. The sound of children breathing in unison might have been the most reassuring noise of all in a world full of storms. Curiously, some later Arctic families placed infants in small snow hollows lined with skins, letting them sleep shielded while adults worked. Such cradles, made of frost itself, sound unthinkable to you, yet they were practical. Snow-insulated, muffled, protected. To lay a child in it was not cruelty but wisdom. You shake your head in wonder at the ingenuity of humans. But experts still argue whether Ice Age children were kept inside shelters at all times, or sometimes carried out into the blizzard, swaddled against a parent's chest. Did communities believe exposure toughened them, or did they guard them jealously from every gust? The truth remains uncertain. Still, you know one fact. No matter the practice, children were the center of every choice. Without them, there was no future. You curl closer to your stone, still faintly warm. The thought of children presses deeper into you, for loneliness gnaws sharper tonight. You remember the way warmth multiplies when bodies cluster. Imagine a child's small weight nestled against your side, their heat a fragile ember you'd guard with your life. The vision aches, but it steadies you. The storm's howl softens for a moment, or perhaps your mind filters it. You close your eyes, picturing a family in the same chamber, mother smoothing fur over her child, father stoking the fire, siblings whispering. The space becomes alive with imagined sound, the hush of laughter, the murmur of lullabies, the rustle of shifting bodies. You almost believe you can hear it. An odd tidbit from later times drifts into your thoughts. Some groups sang lullabies not only for children but for storms themselves. Soft songs meant to coax the blizzard into sleeping. Perhaps that tradition began in chambers like this. Parents singing to little ones, their voices rising louder than the wind. You hum a note now, tentative, almost embarrassed despite being alone. The sound fills the hollow softly, and your heart eases. The fire grows steadier, flames curling upward. Shadows flicker again, stretching like long limbs across the hides. They look gentler now, less like spirits, more like the play of children chasing each other. You smile faintly, allowing imagination to soften solitude. Still, the scholar's question nags you. What did parents tell their children about storms? Were they framed as monsters to fear, or as teachers to respect? Perhaps both. Fear kept little ones from wandering. Reverence taught them patience. Tonight, you lean into the second. You tell yourself the storm is teacher, not foe. Its lesson is harsh but clear. Endure together, or perish alone. You poke the fire with a charred stick, sparks rising, and whisper aloud as if addressing an invisible child. See? Fire bites back. Stones keep heat. Snow can kill, but snow can save. The words feel like instruction, as though you are passing down knowledge to ears that aren't there. You chuckle softly at the absurdity, but it fills you with warmth. The storm lashes the hides again, furious, but you no longer cower. Instead, you tuck your furs tighter, imagining a child pressed against your ribs. The phantom weight comforts you, proof that even alone, you can conjure company through memory and need. Perhaps that, too, is survival keeping not just body but mind alive with visions of what must be protected. The fire burns low again, but your spirit feels steadier. You whisper once more into the chamber. Little ones are safe. I will keep them safe. And with that vow, loneliness retreats, replaced by the faint hum of imagined breath. The fire hums gently, its glow reflecting in the cracks of stone and on the glossy sheen of stretched hides. You lean closer, feeding it another twig, and listen to the way the sound of flame softens the roar outside. The blizzard still beats against your den, but here, the crackle of fire is stronger, brighter, almost like a voice, and in that rhythm you feel the old human urge rising, the need to speak, to sing, to make sound that comforts and binds. Alone, you find yourself whispering, then humming, as if the flame itself is audience. Archaeologists have uncovered bone flutes from Ice Age sites, hollowed with deliberate holes, instruments older than written words. The oldest known flute, carved from vulture bone, is over 40,000 years old. Evidence enough that even in a world of predators and storms, people still made music. You imagine them huddled just like you, their fires dim, their shelters trembling, yet someone still raised a tune. Tonight, you follow their path. Your voice is low, cracked with cold and hunger, but the chamber catches it. The sound bounces softly, muffled by snow, turning your hum into something warmer. You sing no words, only tones, long and slow, rising and falling with the fire's crackle. The sound comforts you, filling emptiness with something human. There is an odd custom, recorded far later in tundra communities. To sing softly while tending fire was thought to soothe it, keeping flames steady. The belief was that fire liked companionship, that its spirit would falter if left in silence. You hum louder now, smiling faintly at the thought. If fire can be soothed by song, then perhaps you and it will last the night together. Yet a question lingers in your mind. Do archaeologists agree that Ice Age people sang for survival, or was music pure expression born of joy? Specialists remain divided. Some argue songs calmed children, set rhythms for work, or bound groups in ritual. Others suggest music was leisure, rare and unnecessary in a world of constant danger. The evidence is uncertain. But as you sit in your storm-lashed shelter, you feel certain. Sound keeps fear at bay. Silence is too sharp. Your song shifts into words, though you do not remember where they come from. Perhaps fragments of old tales, perhaps nonsense, perhaps prayers. Walls of snow hold me. Fire, keep breathing. Stones, stay warm. The rhythm steadies your heart, slows your breath. You imagine others, families, hunters, wanderers singing their own refrains across centuries, each voice layering into a great chorus. The hides rustle with wind, joining in, their shivers sounding like drums. The fire pops sharply, adding percussion. You laugh softly at the thought. The storm tries to silence, yet you've turned it into an orchestra, a human trick, as old as survival itself. The shadows on the wall dance wildly, bending into strange shapes. Some look like animals, antlers, claws, stretched wings. Others look like people, arms raised. You remember that some caves hold paintings in chambers where acoustics amplify echoes, as if sound and image were always linked. Perhaps music was part of ritual, part of art. Perhaps stories were not only told but sung. You hum louder, watching the shadows dance, imagining yourself part of that ancient tradition. Your throat aches, lips dry, but your voice continues, stubborn. The sound reminds you you're alive, that your breath still moves, and as the tune echoes faintly back, you feel less alone. You picture a circle of faces, eyes lit by fire, mouths open in harmony. Your song becomes theirs. A peculiar belief from later centuries whispers in your thoughts. Some said that storms themselves had ears, and if you sang bravely, they would pass more quickly. If you sat in silence, they lingered, hungry for your fear. You chuckle faintly, though your voice cracks. Still, you keep singing. If the blizzard has ears, let it hear defiance. The fire grows steadier, as though encouraged. The coals glow richer, the flame taller. You sit straighter, shoulders less slumped. For the first time in hours, you feel strong not because the storm has eased, but because your spirit has found rhythm. Your eyes grow heavy again, but this time the song cushions you. You let the note fade slowly, softer and softer, until your voice is a whisper. The chamber hums with warmth, shadows still dancing, wind still howling, but none of it feels hostile anymore. It feels like accompaniment. And so you murmur into the dim glow, song carries me, fire joins me, the storm cannot drown me. Then you close your eyes, body curled near the heated stone, the lull of your own voice guiding you into uneasy but enduring rest. The fire has burned low again, embers glowing faintly, but your body remembers the hum of song from before. The storm continues its endless tirade outside, yet your mind feels steadier, anchored by rhythm. Still, survival is never only about your own cleverness. Knowledge flows between people, traded like meat or stone. Alone, you have only fragments. But in memory and in imagination you summon the image of others, strangers met in storms, exchanging secrets of how to live. Archaeological digs reveal this truth clearly. Campsites often contain tools or ornaments from regions hundreds of miles apart. Seashells carried inland, obsidian blades from distant quarries, pigments from valleys long traveled. These are signs of networks, of knowledge traded as much as goods. Even in the harshest Ice Age winters, people found one another, shared what they had learned, and carried those lessons onward. Without such exchange, humanity would never have endured. You picture it, two groups meeting by chance after a storm breaks. Their shelters fragile, their bodies gaunt, yet still they speak. One shows how to lash branches tighter against hides. Another demonstrates a method for keeping fire alive by burying embers in ash. Each leaves richer, not with food, but with wisdom. You can almost hear the murmur of voices carried over wind, hesitant at first, then warming with recognition. We both endure, so let us endure together. There is a peculiar note in later accounts from nomadic peoples. Hospitality was sacred, even when supplies were scarce. To share food or a trick of shelter with strangers was seen not as loss but as insurance. Someday you might be the one at their fire. Tonight, as you sip at melted snow from your vessel, you whisper thanks to those unseen ancestors who passed down knowledge you now rely on. Yet academics remain divided on whether Ice Age encounters were mostly cooperative or hostile. Did strangers more often trade secrets or clash over hunting grounds? Evidence of both exists. Bones cracked in violence, but also artifacts clearly swapped. The truth is likely as storm, tossed as life itself. Some meetings brought blood, others brought fire. Still, as you crouch here in your fragile den, you cling to the hopeful vision. You want to believe survival leaned more on generosity than blades. Your fire sputters, and you recall one such traded secret, keeping a coal alive by wrapping it in fungus or moss, tucked deep in fur, carried from camp to camp. Fire born in one place walked with people for miles, fed and tended like a living child. Archaeologists have found lumps of charred fungus in ancient layers, proof of this astonishing practice. The image comforts you. Someone, long ago, taught another that trick, and it spread across continents. Tonight, your flame is heir to that wisdom. The storm howls louder for a moment, making the hides shudder. You hug your knees closer, but instead of fear, a kind of pride warms you. You are not only one person fighting cold, you are every person who ever learned from another, every hand that shared a trick, every voice that whispered, "Do it this way, and you will live." You think of the moments that knowledge must have passed. By the light of a dying fire, two figures leaning close, one demonstrating the right angle to strike flint, the other nodding eagerly. Or perhaps during a hunt, someone pausing to show how to read drifts for hollows. Such scenes repeat endlessly, across centuries, across snowfields, each secret carried like treasure. You close your eyes, pretending for a moment you are not alone, that you sit beside another, trading stories while the storm rages. You imagine their voice, rough, cracked, yet steady. Perhaps they tell you of how they once survived a cave collapse, or how to chew bark to keep thirst at bay. You listen in your mind, nodding, grateful. There's a curious record from later Inuit traditions. Wisdom was sometimes given through riddles, forcing children to think, to puzzle answers from scant clues. The riddle was more than play, it was rehearsal for survival. You wonder if Ice Age bands had similar games, questions traded around fires. If the wind comes from the north, where will the snow drift deepest? The answer was life or death. You smile faintly. Teaching and survival were always entwined. The fire steadies as you feed it another scrap of wood. Shadows ripple across the hides again, and you imagine them as strangers, their movements, gestures of explanation. You almost speak aloud, as though addressing them, asking, "What else did you know? What else did you trade that I do not carry?" Your voice fades, swallowed by snow, but the question lingers in your heart. Perhaps that is what survival truly means, not merely enduring a night, but adding to the chain of shared secrets, carrying them forward. You promise silently that if you leave this storm alive, you too will show another how to hollow snow, how to heat stones, how to breathe with fire. The chain must never break. Your eyelids sag, warmth from the heated rock seeping into your chest, hunger dulled for now. Before you slip into restless half-sleep, you whisper one final vow. "When I meet them, I will give as I was given." The storm rages, but inside your fragile den, the memory of strangers, real or imagined, sits with you, their voices twining with your own, and you realize that even alone, you are never without company. The storm shows no mercy. The hours drag, marked only by the hiss of snow on hides and the tired crackle of your fire. At some point, The stones cooled, their warmth fading into silence. You touch one now, it feels no different from the wall of snow beside you. The heat you borrowed from the earth has fled. Worse still, as you shift, you hear a faint, dreadful sound, a muffled groan above your head. You freeze, breath caught. The snow roof creaks again, a low complaint under its own weight. Panic surges like fire through your veins. A collapse here means suffocation, smothered beneath tons of white silence. You scramble to the tunnel, but the wall shivers, small flakes sprinkling onto your shoulders. Instinct screams at you. Move, dig, fight upward before it's too late. Archaeological sites sometimes preserve tragic evidence of such failures. Collapsed shelters filled with bones, bodies caught mid-motion, proof that snow can turn traitor. Excavators have found entire families entombed, their tools scattered in frozen chambers. These grim finds remind us that even the cleverest shelters were never guarantees. Tonight, you live that truth. Your hands claw at the entrance, pushing snow outward. It is heavy, pressing back, but you dig furiously. Your breath comes ragged, chest burning. Flakes slip into your hood, melting cold against your neck. For a moment, terror blinds you. You imagine the roof caving fully, burying you in a tomb of your own making. A strange memory surfaces. Some later mountain climbers carried small sticks or poles, planting them inside snow caves. If the stick pressed downward, they knew the roof sagged. A clever warning system. You did not think to do that. Now your warning comes too late. Still, desperation sharpens you. You thrust your body forward, widening the tunnel, snow cascading behind you. The world shrinks to white powder, choking your throat, stinging your eyes. Your scraper clatters against stone, but you ignore it, clawing with bare hands when gloves slow you. Panic and purpose blur together. Finally, air bursts across your face, a gap, a gasp. You shove upward, snow falling aside, and emerge into the storm's fury. The wind slams into you, bitter, but never has it felt so sweet. You gulp it greedily, crouched on the drift above your shelter. The blizzard blinds you, but relief floods you all the same. You are not buried. Not yet. Curiously, some Arctic folklore spoke of snow as a living being angry when carved, vengeful when ignored. Collapse was seen not as chance, but as punishment. Tonight, as you cough snow from your throat, you almost believe it. You whisper hoarsely, "I respect you. Let me live." Whether the storm hears or not, you feel calmer after saying it. Still, the scholars' debate echoes in your mind. Did Ice Age people reinforce their shelters against collapse, or simply accept the risk? Some evidence shows branch supports woven into ceilings. Other sites suggest hasty holes dug with little thought. The truth may be that both happened, sometimes wisdom, sometimes desperation. Tonight you vow to reinforce, not gamble. You scramble back into the hollow, heart still racing. The roof sags in places, snow dripping slowly where heat has melted it. Your tools lie half buried in powder. You grab a branch, thrusting it into the roof as a brace. Another follows, wedged at an angle. The structure groans, then steadies. You breathe slower, calming. The den is fragile, but saved for now. The fire sputters, nearly dead from neglect. You coax it carefully, feeding dry scrapings, blowing gently until sparks catch. The flame revives, small but stubborn, and with it your spirit. Collapse has not taken you. You live still. You settle back, chest heaving, and laugh weakly. The sound startles you, brittle, almost hysterical, but it feels necessary. Laughter is defiance, a weapon against the storm's cruelty. You whisper through a cracked grin, "You tried, but not tonight." Your body trembles from exertion, but the chamber steadies. Snow still presses above, but your braces hold. You curl near the fire, wrapping your fur tighter, clutching the warmest stone you could rescue. Fatigue washes over you, heavier than fear now. An odd tidbit returns to you. In some tales, people said that when shelters collapsed, Spirits trapped the living inside, keeping them as companions. The way to escape was to claw upward, showing you still belong to the living world. You think of that as you glance at your tunnel, newly dug, and feel grateful. You fought back, and the spirits released you. The storm rages on, but inside your den you lie awake, listening to every groan, every hiss. Collapse may come again, but you are ready. If snow falls, you will claw. If silence presses, you will dig. For you have learned a cruel lesson. Survival means vigilance, even in moments of rest. And so you murmur into the dim glow. If you fall on me, I will rise through you. The words settle in the chamber, brave or foolish, but they anchor you. You close your eyes at last, not in peace, but in stubborn readiness. Your chest aches with each breath, ribs sore from the frantic digging. The fire is steady again, its glow painting the walls, but hunger returns with sharper teeth than before. The marrow soup gave you strength, yes, but it has already burned away in the furnace of fear and effort. Hunger is not gentle. It claws, it gnaws, it whispers, promises you would rather not hear. You run your tongue across cracked lips, tasting salt and ash. Your stomach growls so loudly it echoes in the hollow, as though another beast waits with you. The sound makes you laugh bitterly. In truth, hunger is a predator, crouched low, patient, never sleeping. You shift closer to the fire, but warmth alone cannot silence it. Archaeological evidence paints the picture clearly. Ice Age bones show cut marks where marrow was scraped, where tendons were stripped, where even gnawed edges tell the story of starvation. Some sites reveal bones of animals broken in desperate fashion, smashed to release every drop of fat. At others, human bones show the same marks, dark proof that in certain winters, hunger forced choices no one wished to speak of. Tonight, you pray you will not see that edge. You glance at your bundle of supplies, thin, meager. Roots, scraps of sinew, fragments of bone already cracked. You chew on a strip of dried hide, leathery and tasteless, more effort than reward. Still, it gives your jaws something to do, a distraction. The bland chew fills your mouth with the faint taste of smoke and animal, a ghost of food. You gnaw until your teeth ache, then swallow. It is not enough. There is a strange account from later times. In the far north, some said chewing leather softened it enough to give the body tiny amounts of fat. It was less a meal than a trick, but a trick that kept life clinging a little longer. You smile grimly. You've become part of that same lineage, chewing survival from scraps. Still, scholars remain divided on how often Ice Age people face such hunger. Some argue that skilled hunters provided more consistently, that starvation was rare. Others point to sites littered with brittle, overused bones as proof of famine's constant shadow. The truth is uncertain, but tonight, in the hollow of your den, you feel the debate in your belly. Hunger is not theory, it is truth. The fire crackles softly. You watch sparks rise, imagining them as tiny scraps of food drifting upward, vanishing before you can grasp them. Your stomach cramps, twisting. You press your hand hard against it, trying to soothe the ache. The shelter feels smaller suddenly, walls pressing closer. Hunger shrinks the world to nothing but need. You sip melted snow from your vessel, tricking your body into fullness. The cold water soothes your throat, but it does little else. Your hands shake, not from cold now, but from emptiness. You close your eyes, forcing yourself to breathe slowly. Panic will only burn more energy. You must stretch what little you have. Curiously, some later shamans spoke of hunger as doorway. Starvation was said to summon visions, spirits rising to meet you when the body grew weak. You wonder if that belief was born in nights like this when bellies were empty and minds spun strange dreams. Perhaps hunger forces you to see differently. Perhaps it drives you half mad. Tonight, you cannot tell the difference. Your thoughts drift to animals, the bison you glimpsed before the storm, the mammoths whose bones once built huts. They carried enough meat to feed a band for weeks. To be alone, to hold only scraps, feels like a curse. You imagine the taste thick meat roasted over flame, fat sizzling. The fantasy tortures you, yet it comforts too. If you can imagine plenty, perhaps it exists beyond the storm. The fire flares as you toss on another stick, shadows leaping. They look like antlers for a moment, huge shapes shifting on the wall. Your heart aches with longing. If only such beasts stood outside now, if only you could step into the white and find them waiting. But you know the truth. The blizzard keeps them hidden, just as it hides everything else. You chew again on the leather scrap, jaw sore. It gives no satisfaction, but it reminds you that survival is not about pleasure, it is about endurance. You whisper to yourself, not taste, not plenty, just enough. The words steady you, a mantra to keep the predator in your belly from devouring your spirit. Your hands trace the bone fragments piled beside you. Sharp edges dig into your skin. You think of how ancestors must have stared at bones in desperation, searching for one more scrap of fat, one more fragment of life. The memory of their struggle comforts you oddly. You are not the first to face hunger's bitter teeth, and you will not be the last. The storm shrieks again, hides trembling, but hunger is louder in your mind. You curl tighter, clutching your warm stone, and close your eyes. Sleep may dull the ache, if only for moments. You drift, stomach still growling, but spirit whispering stubbornly, I endure, even empty. Your body drifts into uneasy sleep, curled around the cooling stone. The storm outside rages still, but in your mind it reshapes into something softer, less a predator, more a chorus. Dreams creep in, weaving with the blizzard's howl. And here, in half-waking, half-dreaming state, the world blurs. Hunger, fear, cold, all become threads in visions that mingle with memory. You find yourself walking across a plain of endless white. The snow glitters, not cruel but luminous, as though moonlight has sunk into each flake. Shapes loom in the distance, figures half human, half animal, antlers curling from their brows, fur cloaking their shoulders. They beckon with slow hands, voices muffled like wind. You step forward, each crunch of snow echoing louder than it should. Archaeologists studying Ice Age art have long noted the blurred lines between human and beast in cave paintings. Figures with deer heads, bird wings, bare claws. Some argue they were shamans in ritual disguise. Others believe they were visions seen in trance or dream. Perhaps both are true. Tonight, your dream places you in that same blurred world. The figures whisper as you approach, though their words are not in language you know. Still, you understand them somehow. They tell you the storm is not enemy, but passage. A test. They show you images, wolves huddled in dens, mammoths circling their calves, humans pressing close around fires. All survive the same way, by staying near, by becoming many instead of one. A curious note from later folklore surfaces in the dream. Some said the wind carried voices of the dead, guiding the living if only they listened. Your dream echoes this, each gust a phrase, each swirl a sentence. You strain to hear, and the voices soften your chest rather than frighten. But then the vision shifts. The white plain cracks beneath your feet, splitting into dark water. You stumble, heart racing, and see shapes beneath the ice bones, faces, tools abandoned. They stare upward, silent. Panic surges, but one of the antlered figures lays a hand on your shoulder. Its touch is warm, steady, and the ice seals again. Not yet, the voice murmurs. Not for you. Specialists remain divided on whether dreams shaped early survival practices. Did hunters act on visions, trusting them as guidance? Or were they merely stories told after restless nights? The debate lingers, yet as you walk through this dream, you feel certain. Visions were as real as snow, as guiding as stone cairns. In a world of endless storms, the mind needed more than fact. The figures lead you to a fire, impossibly bright in the white plain. Around it sit people, faces you do not know, yet who feel familiar. They look up, nodding, as if you are expected. They hand you a stone, still warm, and a scrap of marrow bone. You take them gratefully, clutching both. The warmth seeps into you, the taste floods your mouth. Dream or not, the relief feels real. You wake suddenly, the chamber dark but for faint embers. Your hand is curled around the same stone, cracked and cooled, yet it feels warmer than before. Your lips still taste of marrow, though no food has passed them since last night. You sit upright, shivering but also strangely calm. Dreams may not feed the body, but they can feed the will, and will is what the storm has yet to strip from you. The hides shudder again, snow pressing harder. You stoke the embers carefully, coaxing flame back to life. Sparks rise, just as in your vision. You smile faintly, whispering, "I hear you." Whether to the storm, the dream figures, or the ancestors you imagined, the words carry weight. An unusual discovery comes to mind. At some Ice Age sites, archaeologists found carvings of lines and dots near hearths, marks some interpret as records of lunar cycles or hunts. Others think they were dream tallies, visions, etched into bone so they would not be forgotten. You glance at your scraper, tempted to carve the antlered figure you saw. Perhaps you will, when strength allows. The storm outside rages on, but the dream lingers, a strange comfort. You are not merely fighting cold, you are part of a story, woven across centuries, in which storms test but never wholly defeat. You curl tighter against your furs, whispering once more, "Not yet." And with that vow you drift again, letting dreams and storm mingle, knowing that both are teachers in their own way. You awaken with a start, throat dry. The dream's glow fading into the dull ache of morning, or what you think must be morning, though the storm still howls with the same fury. Time means little here. Light never shifts, and the storm's voice is constant. Your fire has burned almost to ash, only a few stubborn coals glimmering faintly red. You lean forward, breath soft, coaxing them, placing splinters of wood with trembling hands. The flames stir back to life, reluctant but obedient. You sigh in relief, but the air feels thinner now, stale. Smoke curls thick in the den, scratching your throat, stinging your eyes. You cough, covering your mouth with your fur. You realize the snow pressed tighter overnight, sealing the vent holes. The fire, your savior, can just as easily become your executioner if the air runs out. Archaeological sites often reveal circular stains on ceilings of caves, black arcs of soot layered with centuries of fire. From this, researchers know early people battled smoke constantly, devising clever ways to vent shelters. Some dug upward shafts, others propped hides to allow drafts. The battle for clean breath was as critical as the battle for warmth. Tonight, you live that truth in your lungs. You crawl toward the tunnel, shoving with your scraper, widening the opening. Snow pours in, icy and heavy, but fresh air slips through too, sharp and clean. You breathe deeply, coughing until your chest eases. It is a cruel paradox. Air is life, yet opening the den means cold intrudes again. Balance, always balance. Curiously, in later Arctic traditions, families sometimes placed small fires outside their shelters, believing the rising smoke guided wind to pull air through vents. Others thought smoke carried prayers upward, demanding the storm listen. You smile faintly at the idea. Tonight, you'd gladly let smoke carry a plea. Let me breathe. Let me live. But scholars still argue over whether Ice Age shelters were designed with sophisticated vents, or if smoke simply leaked through gaps in hides and snow. Did they think deliberately of air currents? Or was survival more haphazard? Evidence remains uncertain. What is certain is this: Without air, even the strongest walls and brightest flames mean nothing. The chamber clears slowly, the smoke thinning. You settle back by the fire, throat raw, but lungs grateful. Your hands shake as you warm them, the tremors half from cold, half from exhaustion. Every problem solved births another roof, collapse, hunger, smoke. Survival is endless vigilance. Your gaze drifts to the hides overhead. Frost flowers creep along their seams, delicate white lace forming where warmth meets cold. Beautiful, yet deadly. Each crystal is moisture leaving your body, water stolen by the storm. You run your hand across the hide, wiping frost away, only to watch it creep back minutes later. The den breathes with you, but always against you too. You take your scraper again, cutting another groove along the floor, channeling melted snow toward the tunnel. Dampness is creeping into your bedding, a silent enemy as cruel as hunger. Wet fur will leach warmth until none remains. You curse softly, but work steadily, scraping, pushing, piling snow outward. The sound of tool against ice fills the hollow, a rhythm that steadies your nerves. A strange tidbit from much later centuries floats into memory. Some explorers believed smoke in shelters warded insects and small pests, even in winter. They tolerated stinging eyes for the unseen protection. You chuckle weakly if insects are your greatest concern. You are lucky. Tonight, it is the weight of snow and the thinness of air that threaten. The fire crackles louder now, healthier, flames curling orange. You hold your hands close, flexing your stiff fingers. Each small act feels like victory, air restored, smoke thinned, fire fed. Yet you know the balance will tip again. Always it does. You whisper into the chamber, voice rough. You may choke me, you may freeze me, but I will carve air through you. The words steady you, like a vow. You breathe deeper, feeling the air sharper but freer in your lungs. Outside, the storm shrieks still, unrelenting. Inside, your den breathes with you now, smoke curling upward, cold slipping in, but life held steady. And though exhaustion drags at your limbs, you sit straighter, whispering softly, one more battle won, one more breath kept. The fire steadies, breathing with you, but you cannot ignore the new enemy creeping into the chamber. Dampness. The floor, though grooved for drainage, glistens with melt. Your bedding furs feel heavy, chilled at their edges, water soaking where snow has melted and seeped inward. You know this danger well. Cold air cuts, but wetness steals warmth silently, pulling heat from the body until exhaustion claims you. If you do not fight it, your shelter will become a grave. Archaeologists studying Ice Age habitations have found layers of straw, rushes, or pine needles pressed beneath hides. These mats served as insulation, barriers between flesh and frozen ground. Clear traces of such plant bedding have been preserved in ancient caves, thin but deliberate, telling the story of people who understood that survival was not only about walls but about the earth beneath. Tonight, you wish for such mats. You glance at your pack, remembering the handful of reeds you carried from the river days ago. They are brittle now, stiff and half frozen, but they might still serve. You pull them out, spreading them beneath your furs, layering them awkwardly. The smell rises at once, earthy, musty, sharp. It fills the den, mingling with smoke and musk. You wrinkle your nose, but relief floods you as the furs lift slightly off the wet floor. Even a finger's breadth of separation can save heat. There's an unusual detail from later nomads. Some placed ash beneath their bedding, scattering it thick to soak dampness. Ash, they believed, not only dried the ground but carried protective power, warding sickness. You consider using the cooled ash near your hearth, sprinkling it into the grooves you scraped. The texture is soft, clinging to your fingers, and when you scatter it, the water darkens, soaking into the powder. The floor grows less slick. You smile faintly. Old wisdom, even if stumbled upon, carries you. Still, experts remain divided on whether bedding was carefully designed or simply improvised from what lay nearby. Some argue that the layering of reeds shows planning, while others think it was just chance whatever plants happened to be gathered with firewood. The truth may never be known. Yet, kneeling here, placing each brittle stalk with care, you know it feels deliberate. It feels like survival born of thought. You settle back onto the furs, and the difference is immediate. Dampness no longer clings to your ribs. Your body feels lighter, less drained. You exhale slowly, whispering thanks to the stalks, to the ash, to every scrap that separates you from the killing floor. The fire pops loudly, and sparks leap, falling harmlessly into the grooves. For a moment, you imagine them as tiny seeds, planting warmth instead of burning. You close your eyes, and in your mind, you see a family lying close on mats of grass, children pressing against parents, laughter rising despite the storm outside. You are not them, but the image steadies you. Curiously, some Arctic traditions centuries later taught that floors themselves were dangerous, homes of spirits who pulled warmth downward. Bedding was not only comfort, but protection against unseen hands. People scattered charms or carved marks onto their mats, believing they tricked those spirits. You glance at the scratches you made earlier on the hide wall and smile. Perhaps they are enough to keep your floor spirits at bay. But hunger gnaws again, and dampness has left your body weary. You sip from your vessel, melted snow tasting flat but soothing. You gnaw another scrap of leather, jaws aching, but the act keeps you grounded. The storm outside surges louder, snow pressing heavier on the roof. You listen to the muffled groans, but this time you do not panic. You trust the braces you built, the grooves you carved, the mats you spread. Survival is not perfection, it is accumulation. Each act, each scrap of wisdom, adds another layer between you and death. You whisper into the chamber, voice soft but steady. Ground, do not take me. Water, pass me by. I lie above you, not in you. The words sound strange, almost ritual, but they calm you. Perhaps this is why people always spoke to their shelters, their fires, their mats. Words remind you that you are not helpless. The fire glows. The mats lift you from dampness. The ash dries the floor. For now you are safe. You curl tighter into your fur, listening to the storm's endless song. Hunger may return, snow may press, but tonight the ground does not claim you. And with that thought, you breathe easier, eyelids sagging. You whisper one last time before slipping into shallow rest. I float above the earth, not beneath it. The bedding of reeds and ash cradles you gently, lifting your body from the wet chill of the floor. Though hunger gnaws and the storm outside never pauses its song, the small adjustments make the den feel more livable. You lie there for a time, eyes half closed, and listen to the layered noises of survival. The fire's steady whisper, the faint drip of meltwater sliding down your grooves, the groan of snow above. These sounds, though harsh, remind you of your own persistence. Each noise is proof you have not surrendered. But something unsettles you, the silence between sounds. The pauses stretch too long, and in them, the storm seems to hold its breath. You feel the weight of it pressing harder on the roof, the sense that it listens, waits, measures. The thought unnerves you, and so you search for distraction. Your hand touches the pouch at your side, and inside you feel a smooth, polished object, a small pendant carved from bone. Archaeologists have uncovered countless such artifacts: beads of ivory, pendants of pierced teeth, shells carried from coasts far away. Many were clearly decorative, but others seemed to hold deeper meaning. Some were etched with lines, others shaped into tiny animals or human forms. These objects traveled across miles, passed from hand to hand, worn close to the body. They were more than adornment, they were anchors of spirit. Tonight, in your hollow of snow and hide, you cling to yours. You roll it between your fingers, tracing its grooves. The carving is crude, a spiral etched into bone, worn smooth from years of handling. Perhaps it once meant the cycle of seasons, or perhaps nothing more than a hand's idle work. But to you it is memory, a piece of another time, another person. Holding it, you feel less adrift. There is a curious note from later cultures. Talismans were often given to travelers, not just for luck but as symbols of home. A shell from the coast meant you carried the sea with you, even in frozen plains. A claw from a bear meant you carried its strength. Perhaps this pendant once meant the same. Tonight, it means endurance. Still, scholars disagree on whether such items held deep ritual power or were simply tokens of affection, gifts between companions. The evidence cannot decide. Yet as you clutch your pendant, you know that meaning is not found in debates, but in moments like this when the weight of a small object steadies your heart against a vast storm. You lift it to your lips, pressing a kiss into the bone. The taste is faintly salty, bitter from years of handling, but it calms you. You whisper, "Stay with me," as though the pendant hears. Perhaps it does. The fire glows brighter for a moment, and in its flicker the pendant casts a shadow on the hide wall, a spiral larger than your hand, twisting like a path. You watch it, entranced, imagining it as a symbol of survival itself, the spiral of storms, the spiral of hunger, the spiral of breath, always circling, never ending. An odd tidbit surfaces from your memory. Some ancient burials contained small pendants placed on the chest of the dead. Were they companions for the next world, or anchors to keep the spirit close to the living? You shiver, clutching yours tighter. You are not ready for such journeys. For now, it must be an anchor to this life, not the next. The hides rustle again as snow presses heavier. You slide the pendant beneath your furs, resting it against your skin. Its chill quickly warms, blending with your body. It feels almost alive, as though it beats with your pulse. The illusion comforts you. You whisper softly, voice slow and deliberate, "I am not only flesh, I am carried by what came before." The words calm the quiver in your chest, steadying your breath. The storm may take wood, food, warmth, but not this small bone, this memory you hold. Your eyes grow heavy again, but this time the pendant's weight steadies you. The fire murmurs, the mats hold back the damp, the pendant warms against your chest. Survival is not only wood and stone, but also memory, spirit, token. You close your eyes, repeating one last phrase, "Spiral, keep me." And with that, the silence between sounds no longer frightens you. It feels instead like the world holding its breath with you, waiting, protecting. The bone pendant rests warm against your chest, its spiral pressing faintly into your skin as though reminding you of its presence. You stir, lifting your head from the bedding of reeds, and hear the storm still raging, unchanged, eternal. But another sound creeps into your awareness, a faint scratching, almost too soft to notice. At first you think it is only snow shifting, settling against the walls. Then it comes again, deliberate, irregular. Your pulse quickens. Something is moving out there. Wolves come to mind immediately. You remember the faint howls carried on the wind earlier. The storm would not stop them. Hunger drives them closer to human shelters. You sit still, barely breathing, straining your ears. The scratching pauses, then resumes, this time higher up, as if claws testing the roof. Your body tenses. Archaeological evidence shows that Ice Age shelters were not only defenses against weather, but also against animals. Some sites reveal layers of bones from wolves, bears, even lions, scattered around human camps, proof of constant struggle. Claw marks found near cave entrances hint at battles fought to protect the fire's glow. Tonight, you sense that same timeless contest repeating above your fragile roof. You grip your flint blade tightly. Its edge gleams faint in the firelight, sharp but small. Against a wolf's jaws, it feels like nothing. Still, it is what you have. Your other hand clutches a heated stone, its warmth reassuring even as it cracks faintly from stress. There is a curious note from later hunter traditions. Some believed predators tested humans during storms, circling their shelters not only for food but for spirit. To survive such encounters was to prove your strength to the wilderness itself. You breathe slowly, whispering, "I am not yours." But experts remain divided. Did Ice Age humans fear wolves as rivals, or did they already begin the long path toward partnership? Evidence of early domesticated dogs dates back tens of thousands of years, perhaps born from nights like this: wolves drawn to fire, humans tolerating their presence until fear shifted into alliance. Tonight, though, you know only the older truth. They are hunger with teeth. The scratching grows louder, followed by a muffled thump. Snow sifts down into the chamber, sprinkling onto your bedding. Your heart hammers. You crawl to the tunnel, peering into the white chaos beyond. Nothing but wind-driven flakes swirl, blinding. Yet you sense eyes out there, watching. You remember an odd tidbit. Some Arctic hunters claimed that wolves could smell fear itself, that trembling bodies leaked a scent carried on the wind. The only defense was to project calm, to hum softly, to move without haste. You force your breath slower, humming the tune you sang to your fire earlier. The sound steadies you, though your hands still shake. The fire pops, throwing sparks. For a moment, the scratching ceases, as though the flare startled whatever prowls above. Then silence. You sit motionless, waiting, muscles aching from stillness. Perhaps they have gone, or perhaps they wait, patient as hunger itself. You crawl back inside, feeding another stick to the fire. Shadows leap wildly, and one looks like a wolf's muzzle stretched long across the hide wall. You do not look away. Instead, you meet the shadow's gaze, whispering, "I see you." The words are part defiance, part plea. Time drags, each moment stretched thin. At last, the scratching does not return. The roof holds steady, the storm's voice the only sound again. You release your breath slowly, shoulders sagging. Relief washes over you, though unease lingers. Predators are never gone. They simply wait. You press the pendant harder against your chest, grateful for its weight. You murmur softly, "Not tonight." The words are meant for wolves, for spirits, for yourself. An odd thought rises. Perhaps this is why humans carried pendants, sang songs, painted caves, to remind themselves that they were more than prey, more than meat trembling in snow, to declare, even in whispers, that they belonged to the world as much as wolves did. The fire burns steadier now, warming your face. The stone in your hand cools slowly, its cracks deepening, but it still gives faint comfort. You curl against your bedding, ears straining for more scratches. None come, only the blizzard's endless rush. Exhaustion drags at you, but you hold on a little longer, eyes fixed on the fire. You whisper one final line before slipping into shallow rest. "Wolves may circle, but I keep the flame." You do not know how long you've slept, if you slept at all. Dreams and waking blur when storms never pause. Your body feels heavier, slower, your belly hollow as an abandoned cave. The fire has dwindled again, flames barely clinging to the last scraps of wood. You crouch close, coaxing it back with splinters. Sparks leap, faint orange against white smoke. The fire answers, weak but stubborn. You breathe in relief, but you know you cannot keep feeding it forever. Your woodpile shrinks to almost nothing. The thought presses into you, fuel. Without it, the fire will die, and then cold will sink claws into your marrow. You shiver, not from the wind but from the truth. To survive another day, you must step back into the storm. Archaeological sites reveal this same urgency. Hearths often contain layers of charcoal mixed with wood from far outside local ranges. Some camps show evidence that hunters dragged branches miles across snow. People did not settle only where shelter was possible, but where fuel could be gathered. Tonight, you carry their same burden. You pull your furs tight, tucking the pendant beneath them, its spiral warm against your chest. The fire you leave behind must not die while you search. You wrap glowing coals in a bundle of moss, placing them near heated stones. If the flame falters, at least embers will wait for your return. Then you crawl into the tunnel, heart pounding, and push yourself into the blizzard's fury. The wind greets you with knives of ice, cutting across your face. Snow swirls so thick you see nothing beyond arm's length. You crouch low, following the markers you planted before the branches jutting like skeletal fingers from the drift. Without them, you would be swallowed whole. Each step is a battle, snow clutching at your legs, wind tearing your breath. You search blindly, scraping through drifts for fallen branches. Your fingers sting, but at last you grasp wood thin, brittle, half-buried. You yank it free, triumphant, though it is damp and heavy with frost. Still, it is fuel. You drag it to the next marker, then search again. There is a peculiar practice noted in later Arctic groups. They sometimes burned bones when wood grew scarce, fat-rich marrow fueling flames. Archaeologists have even found blackened bones in Ice Age hearths, proof that desperation bred ingenuity. You glance at your own pile of cracked bones back in the den, and remind yourself if no wood remains, you can still burn memory of animals long gone. But for now, you must gather what you can. You stumble further, snow blinding, wind roaring. Each branch you find feels like treasure. You tie them with sinew, hauling them across your shoulders. Your body aches, lungs burn, but the thought of your fire fading drives you onward. Scholars remain divided on whether such fuel gathering was routine or desperate. Did families stockpile wood before storms, or did each blizzard force them into frantic scavenging? The truth is likely both. Some prepared, others gambled. Tonight you know which camp you fall into. You gamble, because you must. You reach your furthest marker, no more branches visible. Beyond it lies only white void, a horizon erased. You crouch, torn, push farther, risk vanishing, or retreat with what little you carry. Hunger urges risk, but memory whispers caution. You turn back, following your markers home. The storm howls, but your branches press against your back, proof of victory. The tunnel mouth appears at last, half buried. You claw through, dragging wood inside. The warmth of the chamber hits you like embrace. The fire still flickers weakly, embers glowing. Relief nearly makes you weep. You feed the first branch, damp but slowly catching, then another. Smoke thickens, but flames rise stronger. You slump against the wall, chest heaving. The woodpile is small, barely a day's worth, but it feels like fortune. You stroke the pendant absently, whispering, "I returned." An odd tidbit surfaces. Some ancient travelers swore never to re-enter shelters empty. Handed, believing spirits punished those who returned with nothing. Perhaps it was superstition, perhaps simply survival discipline. Either way, you smile faintly. You kept the rule. You came back with fire's food. The chamber grows warm again, fire snapping brighter. Damp wood hisses, filling the space with bitter smoke, but you welcome it. It means the flame will live another night. You curl against the wall, letting exhaustion weigh you down. Branches stacked beside you. The storm may rage for days, but you have bought yourself time. Time is survival. Your eyelids sag, but before you drift, you whisper one vow into the smoke: "I will feed the flame, and it will feed me." The pile of wood rests at your side, damp but precious, each branch a lifeline. The fire snaps and hisses as the wet bark burns away, filling the den with smoke that curls lazily toward the vent. You cough, wave your hand, but smile anyway. The storm outside still screams its endless voice, yet you know the balance inside tilts in your favor for now. The flame lives, and so do you. Still, hunger gnaws. The marrow is long gone, the leather chewed until your jaw aches, the roots little more than memory. Fire warms but does not feed. Your belly contracts in sharp waves, and you press a hand against it, as if to soothe a restless animal. You need sustenance, and that thought pulls your mind to the only source left in abundance: snow. It seems absurd, drinking what threatens to bury you. Yet melted snow has been humanity's water for tens of thousands of years. Archaeologists uncover fire-blackened stones and vessels that held nothing more glamorous than melted flakes. The evidence reminds us that water, too, is survival often overlooked, yet more vital than food in the short term. Tonight, it is your answer. You set a stone vessel near the fire, scooping handfuls of snow into it. The flakes hiss as they collapse, shrinking into a shallow pool. You watch closely, adding more, stirring with a stick until the water steams faintly. The smell is faintly metallic, tinged with ash. You sip anyway. It burns warm in your throat, filling your belly with heat if not substance. There is a curious note from later traditions. Some believed snow carried memory of the sky, and to drink it too quickly was to invite storms into your body. People would melt it slowly, whispering to it as it turned to water. You murmur softly now, a half smile on your lips. Melt gently, melt kindly. The act calms you, makes the simple drink feel sacred. But scholars remain uncertain about how Ice Age people purified water. Did they boil it always, or drink snow straight from drifts? Evidence points both ways. Yet the risks of raw snow lowering body temperature, filling the belly with cold, are clear. You know instinctively that warmth is the only safe path. Tonight, the small pool of steaming water feels like triumph. You sip again, slower this time. The warmth spreads outward, dulling hunger briefly, steadying your heart. You drink deeply, then fill the vessel again. Water is not food, but it is fullness, a temporary comfort. You whisper thanks into the steam, imagining your words carried back to the sky. The fire crackles brighter, drying the damp wood you stacked nearby. Shadows stretch across the walls, twisting in patterns that almost look like flowing rivers. You smile faintly at the thought. Perhaps your ancestors once stared at the same shapes, seeing water in flame, storm in smoke. Survival was not only practical, it was art born of necessity. Your thoughts drift to rivers themselves, frozen now beneath ice. Archaeologists know Ice Age bands camped often near streams, where fish could be trapped, water scooped, reeds gathered. Some camps reveal layers of fish bones charred black, evidence that nets or traps supplied meals in leaner times. You ache at the thought of such abundance. To have a fish sizzling over your fire now would feel like a gift from the gods. An odd tidbit surfaces. In certain folk tales, fish were said to carry messages from beneath the ice, and eating them was thought to pass on hidden knowledge. You chuckle softly, whispering, "Send me wisdom with your scales." The dream of such a meal is almost enough to quiet hunger. The storm outside claws again, snow pressing harder against the roof. You glance upward, uneasy, but your braces hold. Water drips down the grooves you carved, sliding harmlessly to the tunnel. You nod in satisfaction. Each task done earlier continues to guard you now. Survival is work that pays itself in echoes. Still, unease lingers. Your belly is hollow, your limbs weak. You know water alone cannot sustain you. Tomorrow, or whatever time follows this endless night, you must find food. Roots buried in snow, scraps of frozen berries, even bark chewed for sap. Archaeological records show all these were used. Nothing was wasted, nothing ignored. To live in storms meant to eat the world itself, one scrap at a time. You sip again, filling your belly with warmth. For now, it must be enough. The fire glows steady, the storm rages, but you have water, you have flame, you have will. You lie back on your bedding, pendant warm against your chest, vessel steaming nearby. The storm may take days to pass, but tonight you whisper one quiet vow. Snow becomes water, water becomes life, and I remain. The steam rising from your vessel swirls in lazy curls, fading into the dim smoke that lingers near the roof. You watch it as though it is a spirit, rising, escaping, whispering of things beyond your shelter. Your belly is filled only with water, but the heat steadies you. Each sip feels like defiance, a small fire inside your chest. Yet the storm rages still, and you know warmth and water are not enough. Strength drains, slowly, invisibly, until hands falter, eyes close, and survival slips away. Your gaze drifts to the pile of bones beside the hearth, cracked from earlier meals, hollowed for marrow. They seem useless now, but your mind recalls something. Bones themselves can burn. Archaeologists have found blackened fragments in ancient hearths, proof that in desperate times, when no wood remained, people fed their fires with the very remains of their hunts. Fat clinging to the bone fueled the flame, thin but sufficient. You pick one up, weighing it, imagining its transformation from meal to fuel. Even in death, the animal gives again. Curiously, some later nomadic traditions treated burning bones as taboo, believing it angered the spirits of the hunt. Others believed the opposite, that flame released the animal's essence, carrying gratitude skyward. You stare into the fire, the bone heavy in your hand, and murmur softly, "If you held spirit, let it rise with smoke." Then you place it onto the coals. It crackles, hisses, and then, slowly, it burns. Still, scholars disagree. Were these burned bones deliberate fuel, or merely waste thrown into the flames? The evidence is mixed, but the truth for you is clear. Tonight, necessity demands it. The smell is sharp, oily, bitter, filling your den with acrid tang. You cough, eyes stinging, but you smile too. The fire brightens. You live another hour. The hides overhead quiver as the blizzard strikes harder. Snow presses against the roof, heavy enough to groan through the branches. You tense, listening for collapse, but the supports you wedged earlier hold firm. Melt drips steadily down the grooves, trickling toward the tunnel. You run your finger through the water, tasting its cold, earthy bite. The shelter is fragile, yes, but it endures. You shift closer to the fire, clutching your pendant. Its spiral presses into your chest again, warm from your skin. You trace it with your thumb, letting memory soothe you. Perhaps it once belonged to another survivor who sat in a den like this, whispering thanks to bonfires and melted snow. Perhaps you carry their spirit with you. The thought comforts, even as hunger claws sharper. Your mind drifts to stories of ancestors, the ones painted on cave walls, faces smeared with ochre, hands outlined in red. Archaeologists know these images well, but their meaning is debated. Were they prayers for a hunt, records of survival, or simply marks of presence? We were here, and we endured. You glance at the scratches you made earlier on your hide wall and think, yes, perhaps it is enough to mark existence. An odd tidbit surfaces from centuries later. Some travelers in frozen lands etched lines in snowdrifts to measure days of storm. Each line carved was both a tally and a promise. You consider making your own tally, but hesitate. Do you truly wish to know how many nights pass? Or is it better to let time dissolve, one endless storm without measure? You choose silence, leaving days uncounted. The fire pops loudly, startling you. You laugh softly at your own fear, shaking your head. Even here, in near emptiness, you can still laugh. The sound echoes faintly, bouncing from hides and snow. It reassures you, proof that your spirit is not yet broken. You sip more water, filling your hollow belly with warmth. Hunger still gnaws, but the fire and the pendant, the mats and grooves, the burning bones, they layer together like shields. You are weak, yes, but not defeated. Still, unease lingers at the edges of your thoughts. Outside, wolves may prowl, or the storm itself may collapse your roof. Inside, smoke may thicken, or fire may falter. Survival is never secure, yet you remind yourself of what you've already done. You built walls of snow, you covered them with hides, you coaxed fire from flint, you melted snow to drink, you burned bones for flame. Each act says the same thing. You endure. You lean back against the hide wall, whispering softly, "I am more than hunger. I am more than storm." The words sound bold, but they ease your chest, steady your breath. Perhaps this is why your ancestors spoke to walls. to fires, to stones. The sound of one's own voice pushes back the silence of death. Your eyelids sag, exhaustion tugging heavier. You curl tighter, stone warm at your chest, fire crackling on bone fuel. The storm roars outside, but inside you whisper one last line before slipping into half sleep. Let smoke carry me, but not yet. The smoke from burned bones lingers, acrid in your nostrils, but the fire still lives, defiant in its glow. You shift on your bedding, feeling every ache in your limbs, every hollow pang in your stomach. Survival has whittled you down to simple truths: breathe, drink, feed the flame. And yet, as you lie there listening to the storm batter your walls, your mind drifts further to the thought of what comes after, if you endure until the blizzard's end. Archaeological evidence shows that Ice Age groups rarely stayed long in one place. Hearths and shelters were temporary, abandoned when weather shifted or resources waned. Some sites reveal layers of occupation, fires relit in the same spot year after year, but others show fleeting marks, a single night's scrape against death. You wonder if your den will leave a trace. Will someone one day dig through snow-pressed earth and find your fire's ashes, your cracked bones, your spiral pendant? Or will the storm erase you utterly? You feed another branch to the fire, listening to its hiss. The thought presses heavy. Survival is never permanent. The storm may end, but another will come. The question is not if, but how long you can continue. Your ancestors must have felt this same cycle, always endurance, never peace. Yet still, humanity endured. That truth steadies you. There is a curious tradition recorded in later nomadic peoples. Before moving camp, they would leave behind small tokens, stones stacked, bones arranged, scratches carved. These were not only signs for others, but offerings to the land, gestures of respect. Perhaps the message was simple: we were here, and we leave alive. You think of that as you hold your pendant, wondering if you too must leave a sign when the storm passes. But scholars still argue whether Ice Age people marked places for ritual or for memory. Were such signs prayers, or just signals for return? The debate remains unresolved, yet as you trace a spiral into the ash with your fingertip, you know it feels right to mark the moment. Even if no one ever sees it, the act itself affirms your existence. The storm presses louder against the roof, snow groaning under its own weight. You tense, glancing upward, but the braces hold. Water drips steadily down the grooves, and your bedding remains dry. You exhale in relief, whispering softly, "Not yet." Each repetition of those words has become a spell, a thread binding you to life. Your hunger surges again, sharp and cruel, but you distract yourself with thought. You picture the moment after storms ended for your ancestors: snow settling, sky clearing, mammoths revealed on the plains, their tusks glittering in sunday. Hunters would step from their shelters, blinking into light, gripping spears sharpened by long nights, and they would hunt, not only for food but for continuation. You imagine yourself among them, joining the chase, your hunger turned into action instead of emptiness. An odd tidbit surfaces. Some legends claim the storm itself birthed prey, that mammoths emerged from snowbanks, as if sculpted by the blizzard then set walking. Perhaps such tales softened hunger, turned fear into promise. You smile faintly, whispering, "If you birth them, let them walk my way." The fire crackles louder as another branch catches, shadows rippling across the hides. One looks like a mammoth, tusks curving along the wall. You reach out with your hand, tracing the air as though stroking its flank. For a moment, hunger eases, replaced by wonder. You sip melted snow again, filling your belly with warmth. Water soothes but cannot sustain. You remind yourself that when the storm breaks, you must walk out and find food. Berries, roots, fish beneath ice, even bark chewed for sap. Archaeological traces of all these endure, proof that your ancestors ate the world itself in scraps. You will too. Still, fatigue weighs on you. Your hands tremble as you hold the vessel. your head drooping. You curl tighter, pendant against your chest. Fires glow soft on your face. The storm may rage endlessly, but inside, you whisper once more, voice faint but steady. I leave my mark. I keep the flame, I am not erased. And with that vow, you let your body drift, half asleep, half watching shadows, knowing dawn or something like it must come. The storm does not fall silent, but it changes. You sense it before you truly hear it, the howling less sharp, the weight less crushing. The blizzard still claws at your walls, but its frenzy falters, its breath growing ragged. For the first time in what feels like forever, you believe the worst may be passing. You sit up slowly, your body heavy, stiff from days of curling and clenching. The fire burns low but steady, fed by bone and wood, its glow licking the walls in familiar patterns. You press a hand against your chest, feeling the pendant warm against your skin. The spiral there feels more than carved, it feels earned. You have turned through each coil of the storm, each circle of hunger and fear, and yet here you are. Archaeological layers tell us this truth. Storms ended, seasons turned, and life stepped back into the light. Camps abandoned in haste were later reclaimed. Families returned to river valleys, followed herds, built anew. The Ice Age did not grant peace, but it always yielded to change. You take comfort in that knowledge now. You crawl toward the tunnel, scraping away snow that has pressed inward. Your muscles ache, but your hands work with renewed determination. Light filters faintly through the wall, no longer the blank white glare of fury, but a softer grey. You dig harder, breath misting in short bursts, until at last you break through. Air rushes in, colder than before, but cleaner, freer. You peer outside, and though flakes still swirl, you see distance. The storm weakens. A peculiar note from later traditions surfaces in your thoughts. Some said storms were living things, with tempers that rose and fell like beasts. To endure their rage was to prove yourself, and when they grew weary, survivors emerged stronger. You murmur to the wind now, voice hoarse but steady. You roared, but I remained. Still, experts continue to debate whether early humans saw weather as enemy or teacher. Did they curse it or revere it? Evidence hints at both paintings of storms as monstrous shapes, but also rituals that thank the snow for water and the wind for clearing paths. Tonight, as you kneel in your den's mouth, you feel both truths at once: hatred for its cruelty, gratitude for its lessons. You return inside briefly, gathering your few possessions: the scraper, the vessel, the bundle of bone fragments, and of course the pendant. Each feels heavier with meaning now. They are not only tools or trinkets, but proof of endurance. You scatter the last of the ashes across the floor, a gesture half practical, half symbolic. The den has served you well, but it will not serve forever. An odd tidbit lingers in your memory. Some travelers, before leaving shelters, pressed handprints on the walls, as if to say, "I was here, and I survived." You have no ochre to paint with, no pigment to smear, but you have ash. You dip your hand into the cooling remains of the fire and press it firmly against the hide wall. A black print marks the surface, rough but clear. You nod. That will be your record. The fire sputters its last as you prepare to step out. You warm one stone, clutching it against your belly, and wrap the furs tightly. The storm still lingers, but it no longer terrifies. Beyond these walls lies cold, hunger, perhaps wolves, but also sky, and the promise of food, and the chance to walk forward instead of crouching in fear. You crawl through the tunnel once more, emerging into grey daylight. The wind